Dream, you're in your bedroom, caught up in a video game. When a system notification pings inside your head, congratulations. You have successfully bound the 24-hour tycoon system. From this moment forward, every dollar you spend will result in a 10x cashback reward. In 24 hours, the system will automatically unbind. A countdown timer flickers into existence in your mind. Right then, your brain starts racing at 100 miles an hour. 10 times the money back. Your entire life savings is barely over $2,000. You immediately top up your phone plan with the full $2,000. A split second later, your banking app sends a push notification. A deposit of $20,000 has been made to your savings account. Balance, $20,024. It actually works. You're absolutely ecstatic. Gaming the system is going to be incredibly easy. Without a second thought, you Zelle $20,000 to your best friend Ethan Lin. Instant cashback, $200,000. Ethan sends back a text with a single question mark. But you don't have time to deal with him right now. You immediately send Ethan another $200,000. Instant cashback, $2 million. The next moment, Ethan calls you directly. What the hell? Man, what is going on? 220,000? What did you do? Where did you get this kind of money? Don't worry about it, you say. Didn't I borrow 10 grand from you a while back? I'm just paying you back now. Look, I'm slammed right now. I'll talk to you later. Who the hell pays back 10 grand with 220? Even loan sharks aren't that crazy. What are you up to? Your fingers fly across the screen as you pay off every debt you have. You really want to make a massive purchase for a huge cashback. But for an average guy, there just aren't many ways to drop that much cash on short notice. You have to build up your base capital first. Before you have the funds for the next level of spending, I'll explain everything later. By the way, aren't you like 100 grand in the hole? Go pay it off and stop nagging me. Fine, I'll go take care of the debt first. Call me when you're free. With that, he hangs up. In just 3 short minutes, you've cleared every single online loan and credit card balance you own. That $300,000 you just spent resulted in a $3 million cashback. Now, your bank balance sits at $4.7 million. Ethan is the only real friend you have. Everyone else is just a fair-weather acquaintance. They aren't worth your help right now. There isn't anything else online worth buying for a quick spend. You decide it's time to hit some high-end luxury spots. You rush downstairs as fast as you ever have in your life and hail a taxi. Driver, take me to the Ferrari dealership on the west side. When you have money, the first things to buy are a house and a car. Big-ticket items like that lead to much faster cashback. While in the taxi, you quickly download several different streaming platforms. You don't even look at the streamers. You just load 4 million into the first app. Instant cashback, 40 million. Without hesitation, you drop another 6 million in. Message received, 60 million cashback. Now, 94.7 million is sitting in your bank account. You don't dare put too much into a single platform. For fear of drawing unwanted attention, you repeat the process, putting 10 million into several other platforms. Cashback successful. Driver, I'm in a huge hurry. Get me there as fast as possible. And I'll tip you 5,000. How's that sound? Buckle up, kid. Today I'm going to show you what a real professional driver looks like. The car surges forward instantly. You immediately scan to pay him the $5,000. Cashback, $50,000. In less than half an hour, you've already cycled through nearly 300 million. For an ordinary person, 300 million is enough to retire forever, right? But you're not satisfied. You don't even know what your ultimate goal is anymore. About 20 minutes later, you arrive at the entrance of the Ferrari dealership. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Ferrari Sales Center. Is there a specific model you've had your eye on? Not really, but you can give me a quick rundown of what's in stock. I'm ready to buy right now. The saleswoman takes a look at your outfit. Your clothes, from head to toe, couldn't have cost more than $100. Sir, you might want to look at this one over here. This is the Ferrari 625. The current price is 5.7 million. Don't worry about the details. I'll take this one. Run the card. Then find me a few more. I'm taking all of them. The saleswoman gulps. She looks at you and thinks to herself that life-changing luck has finally come her way today. Do you have the Ferrari 812, Ferrari F12, Ferrari 599, Ferrari 4088, Ferrari SF90, Ferrari 458, and the Ferrari FF in stock? Sir, we might not have all of them on the floor right now, Some would need to be brought in from other locations. The ones I just listed plus the 612 make 8 cars total. I don't need to see the custom options. Just give me the top-tier specs for all of them, mostly in red and black. Just give me the quote. How much for everything? And please, move fast. I'm in a rush. The saleswoman doesn't waste another word. She grabs a calculator immediately and starts tapping away furiously. The base prices are one thing, but with taxes, high-end options, and insurance, the costs add up. The final total for all the vehicles comes to $53.5 million. You have nearly $300 million in your account. You don't have time to swipe for each one individually. That'll do. Give me 4 more sets exactly like that. 5 sets in total. The saleswoman is completely stunned. It's not that she's never seen someone buy a Ferrari, but someone buying luxury supercars, like they're buying heads of cabbage, is absolutely terrifying. Do you have any LaFerraris, sir? The LaFerrari is a limited edition and is sold out worldwide. You feel a bit of regret. It looks like you won't be able to get that one. Run the card. Normally, a standard bank card like yours would have a strictly limited daily spending cap, but under the reality-bending power of the system, which could crush the laws of this world with a single finger, that rule was effortlessly swept aside. As the transaction clears with a successful beep, the saleswoman's gaze toward you turns practically sultry. At a luxury dealership like Ferrari, actual customers are few and far between. So, all the other saleswomen who had nothing to do began to crowd around you. They were all desperate for even a moment of intimacy with this mysterious young billionaire. Your plain, ordinary clothes had now become the ultimate symbol of stealth wealth in their eyes. You just swiped for over $200 million, resulting in an instant cashback of $2.67 billion. Adding that to what you had left, you now have nearly $2.7 billion in cold, hard cash. 40 cars in total. As you sign the papers one by one, the entire sales team remains clustered around you. Even the manager ran over to serve you tea and water, bowing and scraping with every move. He wouldn't have been this devoted even to his own father. Mr. Gray, I must remind you once again that for all of these vehicles, full delivery will take about 6 months. That's fine. Just send them to me one by one as they arrive. I can wait. Upon hearing this, the saleswoman let out a huge sigh of relief. She couldn't even fathom how much the commission would be on a deal worth over $200 million. She felt that even if she became his mistress, just a small allowance from him would be enough for a lifetime of luxury and wealth. In the past, you certainly would have been interested in chatting up these beautiful women, but right now, you only have 24 hours. Over an hour has already passed. You simply don't have the time to consider anything else. At this stage, any beauty has to take a back seat. Help me answer that and put it on speaker. Of course. Hello? Am I speaking with Mr. Gray? This is he. Who's calling? Hello, Mr. Gray. I am Preston Young, the president of Commercial Bank. Your savings account with our bank just received an overseas wire transfer. It's a large transaction of $2.6 billion. Since your deposit with us is so significant, our bank would be honored to invite you to become one of our prestigious VIP clients, where we can offer you numerous conveniences and assistance. $2.6 billion, even though your phone was in normal mode. The caller's voice was clear enough for everyone present to hear. Everyone from the manager to the sales staff was stunned. Just how much money was that? Especially the woman who had been showing you the cars. She thought $200 million was terrifying enough, but hearing over $2.6 billion was a total shock. As for the VIP upgrade, you were more interested in the bank's influence. Hello, President Young. Setting the VIP status aside for a moment, I'd like to ask for a favor. Mr. Gray, please, just give me your instructions. There's no need to be so polite. I want to buy some real estate, either high-end penthouses or luxury mansions. I was wondering if you had any connections in that area. I need them right now, and more than one. If they're a good fit, I can pay immediately. Mr. Gray, please give me a few minutes. I'll reach out to my contacts right away. After you hung up the phone, the saleswomen nearby didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. If you only had a few $100 million, they might still dream of marrying into wealth. But now that you had billions, and that was likely only a fraction of your wealth, you were at a level far beyond their reach. Are there any cars available for me to drive off right now? Mr. Gray, since you selected custom options for every vehicle, the earliest we can have one ready is 3,000 p.m. today. Fine. At 3,000 p.m., regardless of which car it is, call me immediately as soon as it's ready. Also, help me fill up the tank. As for the plates, anything will do. Standard plates are fine. I have other things to take care of, so I'm heading out. Surrounded by the manager and the enthusiastic sales team, you walked out of the store. Just then, the store received a call from Preston Young. Hello, Mr. Gray. I just got in touch with a few people for you. There are quite a few currently willing to sell. What do you think? Our bank is located at... Just set up an appointment for me. It's almost noon now. If possible, I'd like to meet them at your branch at 3:30 p.m. Mr. Gray, it's an honor to serve a guest as distinguished as yourself. It would be our bank's privilege. I will schedule the appointments with them immediately. Then I'll leave it in your hands, President Young. Oh, by the way, do you happen to know any manufacturers or dealers for private yachts or private jets? Rest assured, Mr. Gray, our bank provides high-end concierge services for our VIPs. We can fulfill any requirement you have. In that case, please help me arrange those appointments as well. I'll meet with everyone this afternoon. The appointments were set for the afternoon, but in the meantime, you still had to visit other dealerships. You needed to keep burning through the cash. Fortunately, there were other luxury brand stores on this very street. Less than 500 meters away, you stepped into a Porsche dealership. Before you could even open your mouth, the manager immediately led a group of sales associates to greet you. Hello, Mr. Gray. I am the manager here, Summer Vaughn. Welcome to Porsche. What you didn't know was that, in the 2 minutes you were outside taking that call, the staff at the Ferrari dealership had already shared everything that happened in their group chats. Now, every luxury car dealer on the entire street knew that a mega whale had arrived, splurging like crazy. He had spent nearly $300 million to buy 7 different Ferrari models, 5 of each. It made no sense. No one could understand this guy's logic. What kind of wealthy person buys cars like that? I'd like to know if you have the Porsche 911, the Porsche 918, and the Porsche Carrera GT in stock. Oh, Mr. Gray, we don't have that many units in stock right now. We'll need to source them for you. Just go ahead and arrange all the custom options. Use the most suitable color combinations for everything, and just set the configurations to the highest specs possible. No need to ask me. Hello, Mr. Gray. Based on your selected options, the total out-the-door price is $50 million. That includes 2 different versions of the 918, as well as a 911 and a Carrera GT. Give me 5 sets of that exact same configuration. Without a word, you pulled out your bank card and swiped. In less than an hour total, surrounded by a flock of beautiful women, you left the Porsche dealership. 200 meters later, you arrived at the Lamborghini dealership. The exact same scene played out once again. Ultimately, you picked the Lamborghini Reventon, the Lamborghini Aventador, and the Lamborghini Murcielago. The total price for these 3 models was nearly $40 million. Again, you ordered 5 sets of each. That was another $200 million. Finally, your $4.9 billion turned into $4.7 billion. And then the cashback hit, another $2 billion. Your total balance became $6.72 billion. Same routine. Sign the contracts and leave. You didn't have time to worry about anything else. Finally, it was the Maserati dealership. The Maserati Quattroporte, the Maserati MC20, the Maserati Gran Cabrio, the Maserati Coupon, and the Maserati Gran Turismo only came to $15 million total. With a wave of your hand, you ordered 5 sets of those too, totaling $75 million and netting a $750 million cashback. Your total balance had now climbed to $74 billion. As 3:00 p.m. approached, you arrived at the entrance of a commercial bank. You pulled out your phone and made a call. In less than a minute, from inside the building, a middle-aged man in his 40s came walking out briskly. He was dressed in a formal suit and polished leather shoes. Seeing Caleb, he stepped forward warmly and said, "Hello, Mr. Gray. I'm Arthur Sterling, the president of the commercial bank. Welcome." Caleb replied very politely, "You're too kind, President Sterling. Why don't we head inside to talk?" Arthur looked at Caleb, who was holding a half-eaten burger in his hand. He paused for a moment and said, "Mr. Gray, how about we grab a meal first? I'm worried you might be hungry." Caleb waved it off and said, "No need. I'm in a bit of a rush. Let's just get to it." Arthur said with some concern, "Tell you what, I'll have my staff grab something from nearby for you right away." "How does that sound?" Caleb didn't refuse. "All right, something simple will do. Sorry for the trouble." "No trouble at all, not at all." While they spoke, the two of them walked inside. As soon as Arthur entered the lobby, he casually signaled to a nearby staff member. Then he said, Go look around nearby. Buy a quick meal and have it delivered to the conference room. Remember, it must be fast. There's a 200 bonus in it for you this month. Without a word, the employee took off running. There were quite a few people here this time, because Caleb had requested appointments with many people. Arthur's office couldn't accommodate everyone, so they simply used the conference room. Arthur personally poured tea for Caleb, and then said, "Mr. Gray, everyone you requested is here." This is, after a brief introduction, Caleb scanned the room. There were 7 real estate agents, 3 yacht manufacturers, and 5 people from the private jet sector, 15 people in total. Caleb said politely, "I apologize, everyone, for inviting you all here this way. It's mainly because I'm on a very tight schedule, so I decided to just do it all at once. However, I believe that in our following discussion, you will all be quite satisfied." They were all business veterans, so naturally, they weren't going to get upset over a small thing like this. Besides, Arthur had already told them before they arrived that this man was a mega tycoon. His liquid cash flow was terrifyingly large. In the current economic climate, many wealthy bosses might seem rich, but their assets were mostly tied up in real estate, funds, stocks, and so on. Billionaires with this much liquid cash were truly rare. So, they had come with immense enthusiasm. First was the real estate. Caleb nodded to the group and said, "Could you please pass me the materials you've prepared?" The 7 agents immediately handed them over. They had come prepared with their data. There were more than 30 penthouses and luxury villas available. Caleb skimmed through them quickly. He mainly focused on the environment and the price. These were all famous high-end developments in the city, quite expensive, and definitely not something an ordinary person could afford. For example, the penthouses in the brochures. The cheapest one was $20,000 per square meter. The smallest unit was over 2,500 square feet. Caleb spent a full hour reviewing all the materials. When he looked up, a fast food meal had already been placed beside him. It was rice with a few side dishes. He set the documents down, not caring at all about his appearance, and spoke up. "If I buy your properties, are there any additional discounts or perks?" The agents looked at each other, each taking turns praising the benefits of their own properties. Basically, they were all offering to waive 3 years of HOA fees, utilities, and heating costs. Some included free parking spaces, and others offered 10 full house cleanings. Over 3 years, Caleb did a rough calculation. The cheapest penthouse was $46 million, while the most expensive villa was a staggering $800 million. There were 32 properties in total, penthouses and villas combined. 7 were villas, and 25 were penthouses. The total price came to $4.3 billion. With $7.4 billion in his account, he wasn't worried. On the contrary, he was thrilled. After all, this would net him an instant $43 billion in cashback. However, because the amount was so massive, the system would release the funds to Caleb in installments. Since they had come in such a hurry, they had only brought brochures for the houses and villas. They hadn't expected to close a deal in a single meeting. Usually, you'd talk first, and if there was interest, you'd go for a site visit. Who could have expected to meet someone like this? Someone who placed an order just by looking at pictures. They hadn't even brought the contracts with them, but it didn't matter. With one phone call, someone would have them delivered immediately. For a deal this massive, the office would surely rush the delivery. Caleb ate his meal casually. No one in the room felt it was out of place. That's just how the world works. If you're broke, everything you do is wrong. But if you're rich, even if you're eating street food in a 5-star hotel, people will find a way to praise you for it. They'd say you're unique, grounded, and brilliant. Next, Caleb turned to the 3 yacht representatives. "Do you have the materials ready?" he asked. The 3 of them immediately produced their documents and respectfully placed them in front of Caleb with both hands. After seeing the real estate deal, they were absolutely certain that Caleb was a mega tycoon. How could they dare to be even slightly disrespectful? Even if a man like this treated them like dirt, they would still have to take it with a smile. After Caleb gave the materials a quick look, he pointed to 3 yachts in the brochures and said, "I like these 3 very much. I'll take them all. Plus, I want to commission a custom build." When they heard Caleb speak, they were overjoyed at first, but then quickly responded, "Please don't worry, Mr. Gray. There is nothing we can't build for you." Caleb nodded in satisfaction and quickly began listing his requirements. The 3 reps frantically took notes on their phones. Half an hour later, Caleb said, "The requirements are quite demanding. You three can compete for it. Let's see who can handle the job. By then, the real estate contracts had arrived. Caleb immediately began signing them, while giving the yacht manufacturers some time to think. Not only that, but Caleb also turned to the aircraft representatives and said, "Did you all bring your materials as well?" These people represented several major aviation companies. To be fair, buying a house or a car isn't the same as buying a yacht or a plane. With houses and cars, you usually have ready-to-move in or ready-to-drive options. While some might require a pre-order, they're usually delivered within a few months. Yachts, however, take even longer. Typically, they take 6 months to a year for delivery. Even 2 or 3 years was possible. Ready-made ones were extremely rare. As for private jets, don't even mention it. Most luxury private jets nowadays come from foreign manufacturers. Many wealthy people buy relatively cheap ones, or they have commercial airliners remodeled. So, these people were all from the airlines. Caleb frowned as he looked through their brochures. To be honest, he wasn't very satisfied, but there was no way around it. Because the cost of a private jet is massive, there usually isn't any stock on hand. They're all made to order. Caleb immediately laid out his requirements and conditions, telling them to contact their manufacturers. There were many requirements for the private jet as well. As Caleb spoke, the group took notes. Then, they all quickly contacted their manufacturers. Beside them, Arthur Sterling watched, feeling like he was in a dream. Truth be told, as a bank president, Arthur considered himself well-traveled and knowledgeable. However, he felt like he was truly seeing the world for the first time today. People haggle and pick over everything even when buying vegetables at the market. Yet you're buying items this expensive, as if you're just picking up some random produce. Is that really okay? After the signing, the yacht dealers reached a decision. One of the companies was chosen to handle Caleb's custom order. The private yacht Caleb wanted to customize was based on the data he had quickly looked up on his phone while he was in the taxi. He had combined those details with the specs from the 3 dealers to create a specialized custom design. The total price tag was a staggering $25 billion. Even on a global scale, wasn't that considered extremely expensive? They immediately arranged for someone to deliver the contract. Then, based on existing contract templates, they made revisions and finally signed it. Caleb transferred the full $2.5 billion right then and there. Now, he just had to wait 9 months for delivery. Additionally, there were the 3 ready-made yachts he had liked earlier. That was another $400 million. Without a word, Caleb signed the contracts and swiped his card. Once the payments for the properties and yachts were finished, Caleb's total funds shot up towards $72.2 billion. He could withdraw it all if he wanted, and it was all in cold, hard cash. In the world of the ultra-rich, Caleb was now at the very top of the food chain. As for the custom yacht, it was a challenge for the manufacturer as well, because the yacht Caleb wanted to build, in terms of both size and specifications, was world-class. Fortunately, the manufacturer was quite capable. They were among the best in the country, which was why they could handle such a massive order. In this industry, it really is a case of nothing for 3 years, but one deal lasts you for 3, and with Caleb spending $2.5 billion this time, he received an instant $25 billion cashback. His liquid capital was now massive, having settled the real estate and yacht deals. Next up was the private jet. After some deliberation between the airlines, Eastern Air eventually took the order. Caleb's customization requirements were high-end and complex. All said and done, even with an expedited schedule, it would take 1.5 years to deliver. Normally, it would take 3 or 4 years. So, this timeline was already incredibly rushed, especially while still having to guarantee quality. But Caleb didn't care about that. The only thing he cared about was the massive expenditure. Following the standards of top-tier international luxury, he ordered a custom build. The final price was $3.5 billion. Caleb didn't know if this price would break a world record, but he did know that the airline representatives in front of him were completely numb. With all the contracts signed today, Caleb wasn't worried about anyone trying to cheat him. In the eyes of every representative, Caleb was a mega-billionaire. Behind him was an extremely powerful family that controlled immense wealth. Trying to pull something with a power like that, they weren't that stupid. Only by serving such a big player well could they earn even more. So, on the contrary, they would actively protect Caleb's interests, because that would bring them even more profit. It was a total alignment of interests. After all the signings and card swipes, Caleb's funds finally broke the $100 billion mark. totaling $103.7 billion. Once the representatives had their contracts and payments, they rushed back immediately to report the news. They needed to prioritize this VIP client right away. By the time everyone had left, it was already past 7,000 p.m. Caleb rubbed his temples. To be honest, spending money since 10:00 a.m. until now was actually exhausting. Just the sheer amount of thinking, negotiating, and signing had worn him out. Arthur Sterling looked at Caleb and said, "Mr. Gray, you look quite tired. About this, give me the opportunity to host you for dinner. You can take a break." Caleb wasn't feeling as rushed now. After all, he already had 100 billion. Plus, he had the luxury cars, the villas, the private yacht, and the private jet. He could just relax and live in absolute luxury for the rest of his life. He took a sip of water and said, "All right, let's go." Arthur Sterling kept himself very humble. Even though he was a bank president, it was only a local branch. Even if this city was second only to the capital, it was still just a local position, and he was just one of many. He knew very well that his chances of a promotion might just lie with this young master. With just this one client, he could exceed all his performance targets. As long as he took good care of Caleb, even if he didn't have any other salespeople, he'd never have to worry about quotas again. Caleb stood up and said, "President Sterling, where's the restroom? I want to wash my hands." He'd been sitting all afternoon. Caleb hadn't stood up once. He was also really bursting. Arthur Sterling immediately led Caleb to the restroom. Watching Caleb go inside, he quickly pulled out his phone and dialed a number. By the time Caleb came out, Arthur said with a smile, "Mr. Gray, shall we?" Caleb replied casually, "Let's go." It's worth mentioning that Ferrari had delivered a car to Caleb that afternoon. Caleb had accepted it after a quick look. Walking out the door now, he saw the Ferrari SF90 waiting for him. It looked incredibly sleek. The red body glowed like fire. From the interior to the exterior, Caleb was very satisfied. Arthur Sterling was driving an Audi. Though it couldn't compete with Caleb's Ferrari, it was still low-key and luxurious. Under Arthur's lead, the two arrived at a private kitchen. Caleb was a bit curious, though, since it was just the two of them, why Arthur had specifically reserved the largest private room. Caleb ordered the dishes himself. Arthur didn't even look at the menu before saying, "Just bring whatever this gentleman requested. Go ahead and serve it." Once they sat down, the real conversation began. Caleb sipped his tea and said, "President Sterling, I wanted to ask you something. Are there any other ways to spend a significant amount of money?" "Spend money?" Arthur was a bit taken aback. Hadn't he bought enough today already? After thinking for a moment, he said, "Well, things like luxury watches, collecting fine art, and high-end jewelry are all big-ticket items." Caleb shook his head. "Anything else?" Arthur frowned and said, "If it's just about moving money, then investing is the fastest way to burn through it." "Exactly. Investing." Caleb's eyes lit up. He didn't know much about this before, so naturally he had to pick President Sterling's brain. "Are there any companies right now that are desperate for investment? I'd like to take a look. If the opportunity is right, maybe I can help a few of them get off the ground." "Well, investing? That's easy. And there are way too many companies looking for funding." He immediately replied, "Mr. Gray, there are plenty of options in that regard. With so many companies across the country, and every industry needing capital, I could pull up a huge list for you without even trying." Caleb nodded slightly. "In that case, President Sterling, could you look into film and entertainment, online media, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, and education or training services? Any of those will work. See if any companies in those sectors are looking for investors. Of course, they can't be bottom-tier companies. I don't want to back something with no future." He said this on purpose, of course. As long as he invested, he'd get the cash back. That was all that mattered. Arthur agreed readily. "Don't worry, Mr. Gray. I'll get in touch with you as soon as I get back after dinner." As a bank president, countless companies were constantly begging him for loans. He knew the landscape better than anyone. As for watches, jewelry, or art, those might cost tens of millions at most. But investing, that could easily involve billions or even tens of billions. Comparing the two, this was clearly the more efficient route. The two of them quickly reached an agreement. However, Arthur also made a request of his own. "If possible, I hope you'll consider keeping your deposits with our bank, Mr. Gray." For the sake of his performance metrics, he naturally had to secure this client. Caleb looked at Arthur and smiled. "President Sterling, you surely know the saying about not putting all your eggs in one basket. So, I can't keep my entire fortune here. However, I can promise you that your bank will definitely hold the largest share. A favor for a favor. Old Arthur was working hard for him, so he was happy to help with this small request. Arthur didn't need much. If he could just get 10 billion, his entire yearly quota would be finished. Seeing that their talk was mostly concluded, Arthur's phone suddenly rang. After he answered, whatever the person on the other end said, he simply replied, "Come in." The next moment, the door to the private room opened. Caleb instinctively looked over, only to see a row of young, beautiful women walking in. The last one gently closed the door behind them. Looking at the group of beauties, there were 10 of them in total. Every single one was gorgeous. Judging by looks alone, any one of them would be considered a campus belle at any university. Even in the entertainment industry, they'd be top tier. As for their physiques, they all had great curves, slim waists, and long legs. Some wore tight-fitting dresses that accentuated their curves, while others wore form-fitting pants that showed off their straight, slender legs. Regardless of the outfit, every one of them was stunning. They all looked to be in their early 20s. Caleb was a bit stunned. He turned to glance at Arthur. Arthur said with a chuckle, "Mr. Gray, these are the 10 most beautiful employees at our bank. They all admire you greatly and wanted to meet such a talented young man. Look at how smooth he was." Caleb understood exactly what he meant. He was basically saying, "These are my best. Take your pick." It's not out of the question to take them all. Caleb had never seen anything like this before. But after his experience buying cars earlier today, he was starting to build up a resistance to beautiful women. So, he was able to remain composed. Money is a person's backbone. With so much wealth in his hands, Caleb was the one in charge here. He took a quick look around. Truth be told, they were all high quality. It was a tough choice. Sensing Caleb's hesitation, Arthur gave a soft laugh. "Mr. Gray, why don't I have them give you their contact info? You can reach out to them later. After all, they're all single, and they have plenty of free time." Hearing the underlying meaning in those words, Caleb immediately understood. Single. Then, the 10 beauties stepped forward one by one and added Caleb's contact information. As for whether anything would happen later, that would depend on the circumstances. Among the 10, in terms of looks, style, and vibe, there were pure types, seductive types, cute ones, more mature older sister types, and even ice queen types, cold ones, gentle ones. Every variety was represented. This dinner party, accompanied by these 10 atmosphere girls, was a lively and pleasant affair. By the time the meal ended, it was past 9:30 p.m. Caleb checked the time and said, "President Sterling, I'll leave those connections in your hands." Arthur replied politely, "Think nothing of it, Mr. Gray. It's our bank's honor." Caleb was gradually getting used to the deference and respect from others. He followed up, "Oh, right. I'm also looking to buy a commercial building. I'm not sure if there are any that are currently up for sale." Arthur hesitated before saying, "Mr. Gray, buying an entire commercial skyscraper. That price tag is definitely not cheap. If you're serious about buying one, I'll have to reach out and ask around. Besides, I doubt many people are willing to sell." As the conversation turned to serious business, the 10 women didn't dare speak. They just listened quietly. When they came over today, all they knew was that the president wanted them to accompany a mega VIP for dinner. But how rich this client actually was, they didn't really know. Now, hearing Caleb open his mouth, just to say he wanted to buy a whole commercial building, they were all shaken. A commercial building wasn't some small-time purchase. A single building could easily cost billions or even tens of billions. They looked at Caleb, then at the half-eaten burger still on the table, and their worldviews were completely turned upside down. Extremely expensive. Caleb thought for a moment and said, "Office buildings or commercial buildings, either would work. If we can settle it tonight, that would be ideal." Although Arthur Sterling didn't understand why Caleb was in such a hurry, putting the client's needs first was his top priority. His eyes darted around as he thought, and suddenly something clicked. "Oh, right," he said. "Mr. Gray, would a newly completed building that hasn't been put into use yet work for you?" Caleb said nonchalantly, "That's fine. I can just arrange the renovations and remodeling myself." Arthur immediately pulled out his phone. "Well, since you put it that way, I actually know of one." Caleb's eyes lit up. "Which one?" he asked curiously. While looking for the number, Arthur explained, "A few years ago, a company took a loan from our bank. To build a twin tower complex, two buildings join together. The interior layout is quite sophisticated, designed for mixed use with commercial spaces, offices, a hotel, and residential units all integrated into the blueprint. Construction was just finished last month, and I hear they're currently working on the interior decor. I'm just not sure about the exact progress. Caleb shook his head. I don't want to lease it. I want to buy it outright. President Sterling, could you ask? If the price is right, I'll buy the whole thing right now. Arthur nodded and dialed the number. This was the power of the bank. As a national bank of the United States, the resources they could mobilize and control were absolutely massive. They had their hands in every single industry. The call went through quickly. Arthur hit the speakerphone and placed the mobile on the table. President Sterling, hello. Calling me at this hour? Is there something important on your mind? From the phone, a middle-aged man's deep, booming voice rang out. Arthur laughed. CEO Shaw, I'm actually calling on behalf of someone else today. I wanted to ask you about something. Shaw asked curiously, on behalf of someone? Who, and what's it about? Arthur said with a smile, how are those two buildings of yours doing? Shaw replied immediately, Arthur, are you asking about the money? Checking in on the loan, are we? Ha! Don't you worry. I'll have them ready for use very soon. Once the rent starts coming in, I'll pay you back. Don't be so impatient. Arthur shifted the tone. That's not what I meant. I'm calling to ask if you have any intention of selling. Selling? Shaw was clearly caught off guard by the question. He paused for a moment and said, I'm not really willing to sell, because with those two buildings, whether it's the surroundings or the overall design, everything is top-notch. I'm planning on making a lot of profit from them. Arthur spoke up loudly. Hey, I have a very high-powered client here. I was planning on making an introduction, but if you're not selling, then forget it. Shaw blurted out, Wait, high-powered. What level are we talking about? Arthur said mysteriously. I can't give you the specific details. I can only say they can buy both buildings from you in full cash. Hearing this, Shaw clearly started to hesitate. Two buildings were very expensive, especially in Deep City, where every inch of land is worth its weight in gold. Relying on rent to recoup the costs would take a lot of time. Plus, the profits would have to go toward paying back the bank. Waiting to save enough for the next phase of his plans would indeed take quite a while. If he could liquidate the assets quickly, that would actually be quite a good deal. He thought about it and said, Tell you what, Arthur, I'll get the others together tomorrow to discuss it. At that moment, Caleb leaned in and whispered something into Arthur's ear. Arthur continued, CEO Shaw, the client just told me, if you can negotiate tonight, he wants it tomorrow. We can talk until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. After 10 noon, he's going to look elsewhere. Shaw immediately got anxious. Come on, Arthur. What kind of joke is this? Who buys a building like that? Deciding in just one night? Stop kidding around. That's not a serious offer. Arthur said calmly, I can only tell you that this client spent nearly $10 billion in cash just today. Hearing this, Shaw went silent. $10 billion in cash. Regardless of anything else, anyone who can pull out $10 billion in cash is the real deal. They wouldn't bother making a joke like this. But why the rush? Deciding on a deal in a single night? Shaw's mind was full of questions. Buying a building wasn't that easy. It usually involved inspections, inquiries, comparisons, repeated vetting, and finally, negotiating a down payment. Does this person just not follow the rules? But there was nothing he could do. The client was too rich. After weighing his options, Shaw said, Fine, in an hour. I'll call you back. All right, Arthur said. Sounds good. After hanging up, Arthur and Caleb shared a knowing smile. They would wait here for the news. The 10 beauties nearby didn't even dare to breathe. Spent nearly $10 billion in a single day, and now wants to buy 2 more buildings? Just what kind of tycoon is this? Where did this super rich heir come from? Deep City was a major economic hub for the country. There were beautiful women everywhere, and they were the top beauties of the bank branch. Usually, they were flooded with suitors. Average guys, nouveau riche types, wealthy heirs. But they could guarantee that all those people combined didn't even equal a tenth of Caleb. For a moment, their hearts were all pounding, their minds filled with the art of war and advanced green tea playbooks on how to land a man. They were all calculating how to get close to him. They finally understood Arthur's intentions. Today was just the start of the competition. The colleagues sitting right next to them were now their biggest rivals. Caleb checked the time. It was almost 10 p.m. He said to Arthur, "Tell you what, let these ladies head home first. The two of us should keep discussing the business side of things." Arthur immediately waved his hand. "Sounds good. Mr. Gray has spoken. Everyone, let's head out. Go home and get some rest. It's getting late, and I want you all to stay safe. I still have work matters to attend to with Mr. Gray." Although the women were all reluctant to leave, none of them dared to defy Arthur. Once everyone had left, Caleb rubbed his temples and said, "Oh, right. About those investments. President Sterling, ask around about those too. Send out a mass message. See if anyone is looking for investors." He currently had $100 billion in assets. He couldn't just let it sit there and do nothing. He had to get it out there to trigger more cashback. Even if there was no cashback, investing was still a solid choice. Who knows? He might even make a profit. Arthur didn't hesitate either. He drafted a very polite message on his phone. The gist was that the bank had just acquired a new, major high-value client with immense financial resources, who was interested in investing in various industries. If anyone was seeking a partnership or was short on investment, they were welcome to get in touch. The moment the message was sent out, not even 10 seconds later, Arthur Sterling's phone started ringing. "President Sterling," the voice on the other end blurted out urgently. Arthur gave a knowing smile, put it on speakerphone, and said, "Well now, if it isn't CEO Wang, to what do I owe the pleasure?" CEO Wang took a breath to steady himself, and said, "I just saw your message, President Sterling. I was wondering." Arthur interjected firmly, "I can tell you with absolute certainty. It's all true. And in fact, we're together right now." CEO Wang's breathing hitched for a second. Then he said, "It's too late for a formal visit now. That would be far too rude. But I'd like to come by and pay my respects first thing tomorrow." Arthur saw Caleb's signal and replied, "Tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m. in our bank's conference room. Bring all your documentation and contracts." "Thank you so much, President Sterling," Wang exclaimed, ecstatic. "Thank you truly." Arthur's message was like dropping a piece of bloody meat into a vast ocean. Countless sharks came swarming at the scent. In less than an hour, Arthur had fielded at least 20 calls, all from people seeking partnerships and funding. Many others couldn't even get through on the line, and resorted to texting Arthur directly. An hour later, CEO Shaw finally called back. "Arthur, my partners and I have discussed it. We're willing to sell the towers. However, regarding the units already under contract, there's nothing we can do about those. The buyer will have to handle that themselves." Caleb gave a thumbs-up gesture, signaling no problem, then held up 7 fingers. Arthur understood immediately. "No problem," he said. "Tomorrow morning at 7:00 a.m. sharp in my conference room. Bring all the paperwork and the contracts over." The two exchanged a few more pleasantries before hanging up. Looking at the flood of messages on his phone, Arthur gave a wry smile. "Mr. Gray, are you sure about all of these?" Caleb replied nonchalantly. "Tell them all. Anyone who's available tonight can come see me. Otherwise, they have until 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. Don't bother showing up after 9, because I have other things to take care of after 10:00 a.m. I won't have time for them then." Though he didn't know what Caleb had planned, Arthur knew it wasn't his place to ask. So, the bank president didn't breathe a word about it. After Arthur sent out the update to everyone, he checked the time. It was already 11:00 p.m. Looking a bit weary, he said, "Maybe we should head somewhere else." Caleb thought about it. The restaurant was closing soon anyway. Moving on was a good idea. He felt incredibly energized right now. He wanted to keep making money. Sleep was the last thing on his mind. Arthur thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Gray, come with me. I know a place." They called for a designated driver, and before long, Arthur had brought Caleb to the entrance of an exclusive private club. "Mr. Gray," he explained as they walked in, "this club is owned by a local businessman. The baths, lounges, and massages are all top tier. There are plenty of quiet spots, perfect for discussing business later." Caleb had never been to a place like this, but he liked what he saw. At the very least, the interior design alone was impressive. After providing his membership info, Arthur led Caleb toward the bathing area first. They had VIP suites here, which were nothing like the public bathhouses outside. Those places were crowded with people, but here, everyone got their own private suite. The room was spacious, more like a luxury apartment. It had a bedroom, a private restroom, a small plunge pool, a mini sauna, a professional scrubbing bed, and a rainfall shower. Just as Caleb had undressed, a beautiful woman walked into the room. She was wearing a form-fitting blue blazer and a matching pencil skirt. "Hello, sir," she said with a respectful bow. "I'm here to assist you with your bath." Caleb was a bit taken aback. "Wait, what?" The woman gave him a gentle smile. "This is a standard service for our VIP guests. Every VIP receives this, so please don't worry. My services are strictly professional bathing. If you require other services, someone else will assist you." Caleb was still a little dazed, but he understood the implication. This was just how they did things at this club. He wasn't some chaste monk anyway. The woman was young and attractive, so he relaxed and leaned back into the plunge pool. The woman changed into a bikini, showing off her stunning figure, her full chest, her flat stomach, and her long, straight legs. She walked over to Caleb's side on bare feet and began to massage his head, helping him settle in. Perhaps her technique was just that good. Or maybe Caleb was just genuinely worn out. From running around all day, he was only keeping going on pure adrenaline. Before long, Caleb actually started to feel a wave of drowsiness. A few minutes later, the woman whispered, "Excuse me, sir, would you like to head into the sauna now?" Caleb opened his eyes, shook off the daze, and said, "Yes." The woman didn't follow him inside. Caleb spent about 10 minutes steaming in the sauna before coming back out. When she saw him emerge, she gestured to the scrubbing bed. "Hello again, sir. Please lie down so I can give you a scrub." Caleb gave a slight nod and lay down on the bed. Looking at his powerful physique, the woman felt a flicker of surprise, but she didn't make any inappropriate moves. She picked up a fresh exfoliating mitt and began to scrub Caleb's body. Once she had finished the exfoliation, she applied body wash over him. After rinsing him off, she dried him off thoroughly with a soft towel. The woman said softly, "Sir, my part of the service is complete. Would you like a specialized therapist to come in now?" Caleb hesitated for a moment. He didn't know the reputation of this place, and even if she was a specialized therapist, he worried she might have seen quite a lot of clients. He decided to pass. Better safe than sorry. Caleb didn't actually realize that these high-end, exclusive establishments only cater to a very select group of people. Some of the staff were even pure. And since the clientele was exclusively wealthy, safety was a top priority. Every employee had regular medical checkups to ensure they were free of any illnesses. Compared to some of the wilder people in society, the staff here were likely much cleaner. Caleb forced his brain into overdrive, thinking about his investments with all his might, just to suppress his rising desires. Still, Caleb couldn't help but feel that it was about time he found a woman. After all, isn't the point of having money to enjoy it? Caleb glanced at his phone. Arthur Sterling had sent him a message. It said to head over to room 666 once he was finished. Caleb changed into a bathrobe. Led by a server, he made his way to room 666. When he stepped inside, he found 7 or 8 people already waiting. The room was quite large. It was a luxury suite. The outer area was a small conference room, while the inner section was a bedroom. As soon as he saw Caleb enter, Arthur immediately introduced him. "Come in. The man of the hour is here. Mr. Gray, let me introduce you. This is..." And everyone, "This is Mr. Gray. He is our distinguished guest looking to make investments tonight." "Hello, Mr. Gray." The group greeted Caleb one after another. Despite Caleb's young age, in their eyes, he was basically the god of wealth. Arthur stood by with a beaming smile, waiting. Investing was a technical skill. It wasn't as simple as throwing money at every opportunity. Doing that would lead to massive losses down the line. Although Caleb didn't know much about the technicalities, he could still gauge the future prospects of certain industries. For instance, sectors like healthcare and education were unlikely to ever collapse. First and foremost, it had to be understood that every investment carried a degree of risk. Normally, investors made decisions based on their own circumstances, current market conditions, and various other factors. After a comprehensive evaluation, only then would they invest. But for Caleb's investments, as long as it didn't look like a total sinkhole, he could go for it. Even if the profits and losses just broke even, it was still a massive win for him. As the group introduced their ventures one by one, Caleb gradually gained a better understanding of the landscape. For example, the healthcare industry had always been a market favorite. Consumer goods were one of the more stable sectors. Then there were the trending topics of recent years, like new energy and the current era of internet media. The boom in e-commerce live streaming and influencer sales over the last few years was practically insane. It seemed like anyone and everyone was starting a live stream to sell products. Therefore, investing in that area was actually quite promising. Then there were the essential industries. Who doesn't need the basics like food, clothing, housing, and transportation? There was also finance and real estate. When the real estate market was booming, countless entrepreneurs made their fortunes through it. And when the economy was sluggish, the financial industry often became even more robust. Whether people had money or not, they all wanted to preserve and grow the value of what they had. The industry of making money with money offered even more opportunities. Then there was the senior care industry. After all, the aging population was becoming a serious issue. The elderly care sector was about to see a massive demographic dividend, becoming one of the golden tracks for investment. Nursing homes, health supplements, wheelchairs, canes, senior entertainment, and elderly services all had great potential. Finally, there was the cultural tourism sector. From Aspen going viral to the creative marketing of tourism boards everywhere, the travel industry was developing at high speed. Regions across the country were developing their cultural tourism, finding ways to build their own unique city brands. The business opportunities within this were enormous. Ultimately, Caleb invested in dozens of different companies and corporate groups. These included hospitals, medical device manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, schools, training institutions, senior care and health centers, social media and live streaming networks, film and media companies, advertising agencies, real estate firms, construction materials, tourism, energy, and mining, spanning dozens of sectors and every aspect of life. In total, Caleb invested $30 billion. Of course, this also netted him $300 billion in cashback. It wasn't until 3 or 4 in the morning that all the representatives finally left. Caleb managed to get a rare moment of rest, but he hadn't been asleep for long. Before Arthur Sterling woke him up. "Mr. Gray, it's time to head to the bank. We have those other representatives waiting for us." This was to be expected. Not everyone could have all their materials ready immediately. He could already tell it was going to be another busy morning, but for the sake of making money, Caleb was suddenly full of energy. Despite the dark circles under his eyes, Caleb and Arthur soon arrived at the commercial bank's conference room. It was worth noting that Caleb saw the 10 beauties from the bank again. Today, they were all in their bank uniforms, making preparations in the conference room. They were serving tea, setting up the large electronic screens, and so on. Caleb sat down and had a cup of tea, feeling much better. Before long, the various representatives arrived. How many companies are there in the country? Countless. How many were in Deep City? According to current data, there were nearly 3 million registered enterprises in the entire city of Deep City. As a major economic powerhouse, it was truly at the forefront of commercial development. In just a single night, hundreds of companies had reached out to Arthur looking for investment. However, Caleb didn't have that much energy, so he only met with a portion of them. Of course, the most important matter today was the Twin Towers. CEO Shaw was a middle-aged man in his late 40s. He brought his secretary and a massive pile of documents to the meeting. Caleb took one look at them. If he actually had to read through all of this, it wouldn't just take 2 or 3 hours. Even 2 or 3 days wouldn't be enough. He took the documents and focused only on the key sections. For instance, how many lease agreements had already been signed, the construction costs, the sale price of the equity, the build quality and square footage, and the overall design aspects. Even so, his quick scan still took half an hour, and that was with Caleb only reading a few key sentences and skipping the rest. Caleb looked at CEO Shaw and said seriously, "I'll take it." Caleb was planning to turn this place into his home base, so he couldn't have existing leases in the way. After a period of negotiation, both parties reached an agreement. CEO Shaw and his team would resolve the issue. If the current tenants agreed to be acquired by Caleb, then there would be no problem. If they didn't, they would have to vacate within a specified time frame. Any contract termination fees resulting from this would be covered by Shaw's company. As for the Twin Towers, Caleb purchased them for a total of $30 billion. This triggered an immediate $300 billion cashback. Beyond that, Caleb met with the other representatives and invested another $20 billion in total. When 9:50 a.m. rolled around, Caleb finished signing all the contracts. He then made up an excuse to go to the restroom. A few minutes later, the system's voice echoed in Caleb's mind. "It's been 24 hours. I've fulfilled all the compensation I promised. From now on, your path is your own. Caleb sighed. With deep reluctance, he asked, System, is there really no way for you to stay? The system replied firmly, No. I have performance targets to hit. I am a cultivation system. I must be in a world of immortals. I can't complete my missions here. Caleb knew he couldn't keep the system forever. With a look of mixed emotions, he said, Then I wish you the best on your journey. The system gave a soft chuckle. Think of it this way. I've already helped you rake in so much. Even after I leave, you'll still be able to live an incredible life. Caleb nodded and remained silent. The system hesitated for a moment. Before I go, I'll give you one last gift. As it spoke, a surge of heat flowed into Caleb's body. Caleb instantly felt an indescribable sense of well-being. Before he could ask what it was, the system said, It's nothing fancy. Just a common elixir from the cultivation world. I've dissolved the medicinal effects directly into your system. It will keep you perfectly healthy. You'll be immune to all viruses and resistant to all poisons. You'll never fall ill again. You'll live to be 100 and die peacefully in your sleep. Moreover, your physical capabilities will be vastly enhanced. You'll have the vitality of a dragon, 7 rounds a night, and pleasuring 10 women won't be a problem. Good luck, and enjoy your beautiful life ahead. Goodbye. After speaking, the system slowly faded away like particles of light. Caleb took a deep breath. Thank you, he said. Goodbye. The system was gone. Waving its sleeve, it left without taking a single cloud. Caleb let out a melancholy sigh. He composed himself and prepared to head back to the office. In these 24 hours, with the system's help, Caleb had accumulated a total of $823.7 billion, and those were just his liquid cash assets, ready to be spent at any time. As for his fixed assets, the dozens of villas and luxury penthouses, the hundreds of supercars, the private jets, the yachts, the shares in nearly 100 companies, and those 2 skyscrapers, just with those alone, even if Caleb ever hit rock bottom, he could sell it all off and still have tens of billions left. All the contracts had been signed. Caleb returned to the office. The representatives had all departed. Having secured their investments, they naturally had plenty of work to do. Looking at Arthur Sterling, Caleb rubbed his temples. I appreciate the hard work, President Sterling. Now that things are wrapped up here, I have other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave now. Arthur replied immediately. Of course. A CEO like yourself has a lot on your plate, so it's only natural. Let me walk you out. After parting ways with Arthur, Caleb first went back to his tiny rental apartment. He planned to pack up his things. Actually, there wasn't much worth taking. Just some bedding and a few ordinary clothes. It would be easier to just buy new ones once he moved. Caleb called his landlord. Hey, Uncle Joe, I'm calling to end my lease. Uncle Joe heard this and immediately said, Caleb, are things a bit tough for you lately? Don't worry. I'm not in a rush for the rent. Just stay there for now. You can pay me once you get your paycheck. If you go look for another place, it'll be way more expensive than here. It's not worth it. Caleb felt a warm surge in his chest. Uncle Joe was a great landlord. He was older, liked the company, and had a good heart. He often gave extensions or rent breaks to tenants in trouble. And it was true that Uncle Joe wasn't short on cash. From what Caleb knew, the man had at least 20 properties for rent. With the monthly rental income alone, he lived quite a comfortable life. Caleb said with a smile, No, Uncle Joe, I bought a place, so I have my own home now. Uncle Joe was a bit surprised. Well, look at you. You must have struck it rich. Good for you. Good for you. Since you have your own place, I won't hold you back. Pack up your stuff and just leave the keys at my door on your way out. I'll zell you the remaining deposit in a bit. Sounds good. Thanks, Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe had visited many times. Caleb always kept his room quite clean, so Uncle Joe trusted him completely. He packed up his bedding, his clothes, and everything else. Then he set the keys aside. Caleb took a few photos for Uncle Joe and sent them over. Before finally leaving, not far from the apartment complex, there was a pedestrian bridge. Caleb gave his old clothes to the homeless people there, then turned and walked away. He didn't care at all about the homeless man frantically bowing in gratitude behind him. Caleb was finally finished with everything. He dialed a number for Justin. Hello? Justin's voice came through, sounding like a howling banshee. Holy crap. What the hell happened with you? I've been waiting all day for you. And you're just calling me now? Caleb's tone was light. Aha, I just finished up. Justin teased. You sound pretty happy. Caleb laughed. Of course I am. I'm debt-free. What do you think? Justin said with a click of his tongue. What the hell did you do? Where did all that money come from? And why did you send me so much? Caleb said unhurriedly. Did you pay off your debts yet? I did. I totaled $200,000 in debt. Now, I only have $20,000 left. That's good, Ben, Justin asked in confusion. No, seriously, tell me what's going on. How am I supposed to pay you back this $200,000? Caleb said calmly, no rush. Just pay it back whenever you can. Or don't. It's fine. The two of them were extremely close. Like brothers. Justin was speechless. Incredible. Caleb said casually, it's nothing. I bought some crypto a few years ago. And almost forgot about it. I cashed it out these past few days and made a killing. Justin got it instantly. All right. Good for you. I'm glad you made it. Make sure you save up from now on. We all have to find a way to make a life for ourselves. Caleb said arrogantly, I'm just gonna live it up. Who gives a damn? Gross. I'm gonna go actually make some money. Get lost. Caleb chuckled. He hung up the phone. He arrived at an office building. Caleb parked his car, then took the elevator up. He used to be just an ordinary corporate drone. Now that he was rich, he naturally had to quit. Whoever wants this soul-sucking job can have it. He walked into the office. Caleb went straight to his superior. Manager Reed, I'm quitting. Manager Reed was quite surprised. What happened? I noticed you didn't even show up for work this morning. Did something happen? Caleb worked at an ordinary company. The atmosphere was actually decent. There wasn't too much backstabbing, but the workload had always been heavy. And overtime was a constant. The pay wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. He shook his head and said, it's nothing. I just dabbled in some crypto back in the day, and I cashed out a bit over the last few days. So I'm planning to quit. Manager Reed understood instantly. He patted Caleb's shoulder and said, all right, since you're moving on, I won't stand in the way of your future. Maybe our paths will cross again. Caleb said sincerely, thank you, Manager Reed. Manager Reed waved it off. It's nothing. But we still have to follow the protocol. Write up a formal resignation letter. Then I'll have accounting run the numbers, so we can get your final paycheck settled. There were no dramatic twists or conflicts. Manager Reed agreed quite readily. Next, Caleb said his goodbyes to his coworkers, wrote his resignation letter, and left the company as soon as he handed it in. However, not even a few minutes later, a colleague came running back in, shouting excitedly, holy crap! Do you guys have any idea what I just saw downstairs? I saw Caleb driving a Ferrari. A Ferrari? The office instantly erupted into chaos, as everyone started gossiping wildly. Caleb drove away, feeling relaxed and at ease. Now that he had the means, he was determined to start enjoying life on his own terms. The first order of business was to get a new wardrobe. The clothes he was wearing right now weren't exactly rags from a flea market, but they certainly weren't high-end either. Just your typical $30 or $40 items. After all, he used to live frugally, spending every cent he earned on paying back his debts. But luckily, Caleb had grown up in the Fruitvale orphanage. He only had himself to look after. Even when his payments were overdue, the creditors could only negotiate with him for a slow repayment. Fortunately, Caleb was a man of integrity. He believed that since he borrowed the money, he should face the consequences. But that was all in the past now. So there was no need to dwell on it. When it came to luxury spending, Caleb didn't know much about it. He'd heard that to buy certain things, you had to undergo asset verification, which sounded like a major hassle. But it didn't matter. Now that he was wealthy, he could hire professionals to handle all of that for him. Like the bank, Caleb was very good at utilizing external resources. If he didn't understand something, he'd find someone who did. After all, professional tasks should be left to professionals. He dialed Arthur Sterling's number. President Sterling, I have a question. Does our bank have any partnerships with high-end luxury brands? Arthur said proudly, please don't worry, Mr. Gray. Across the entire United States, our commercial bank has connections in almost every industry. You just need to tell me what you're looking for. Caleb said with satisfaction, I want to do some luxury shopping. I'd like the bank to contact these partners to see where the best place for me to go would be. Asking when you don't know is nothing to be ashamed of. Arthur's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, tell you what, Mr. Gray, I'll assign one of our experts who knows these brands inside out. He works with these vendors frequently, so I'll have him accompany you. How does that sound? Money truly was the ultimate power. Caleb replied, no problem. I'll wait for your update. Less than 3 minutes after hanging up, an unknown number called. Hello, is this Mr. Caleb Gray? A pleasant, melodic voice answered, laced with a hint of allure and full of charm. Caleb said calmly, That's right. It's me. Hello, distinguished Mr. Gray. I am the personal shopping guide arranged for you by President Arthur Sterling of the Deep City Commercial Bank. I am a staff member of the bank. We actually met at dinner last night. My name is Tiffany Wang. Tiffany Wang. Caleb thought for a moment and realized who she was. Oh, it's you. It was a coincidence, but having an acquaintance was fine. Tiffany continued, Mr. Gray, if you're looking for luxury goods, I recommend the International Plaza. The selection there is very comprehensive, and the quality is top tier. Caleb snapped his fingers and said, All right, let's go there. I'm driving anyway, so I'll head that way. I'll pick you up when I pass by the bank. Tiffany said with delight, That would be far too much trouble for you, Mr. Gray. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be of assistance to you. After hanging up, Tiffany immediately began touching up her makeup. She remembered last night's dinner vividly. The man had spent billions in a single day, though she didn't know exactly what he bought. This morning in the conference room, she had been there the whole time serving tea and helping with chores. She had seen everything clearly. 300 billion for 2 buildings alone. The other contracts were worth billions more. In front of this young master, money was spent as if it were monopoly money. In her 4 years in the industry, she thought she'd seen plenty of wealthy men, but she had never seen a tycoon like this. She knew exactly why. The 10 of them were sent to that dinner. She understood it perfectly. But that night, Caleb didn't keep a single one of them. It had made them think he wasn't interested. But she didn't expect the tables to turn so quickly. The opportunity was right in front of her. She wasn't some naive, wide-eyed college student anymore. After working here for 4 years, what she wanted most was to live among the elite. She was beautiful, had a great figure, and a master's degree. Those were her strengths, but they were also her weaknesses. High education and high beauty. Usually did well in the dating market, but this was Deep City. A simple lack of Deep City residency status was enough to hold her back. She had tried hard to find a wealthy man, but they were either too old or just looking for a fling. Consequently, she had never found the right match. She actually didn't mind being someone's mistress, but most wealthy men made it clear. They only wanted her for 2 or 3 years, before they get bored and move on. That was something she couldn't accept. She wanted a permanent ticket to a better life. She wanted the life of the elite. She knew her body was her capital, so she had guarded herself carefully, and never given it away. She hoped to trade it for a future. It wasn't that she was against premarital sex. She just hadn't found a buyer she was satisfied with. To put it bluntly, that one layer thinner than plastic wrap, but it was truly worth a fortune. Even if she sold herself, she would make sure to get a good price for it. She didn't hide her gold-digging nature or her vanity, but she wasn't stupid either. It was just that it was so difficult. Caleb's appearance made her see another opportunity. Following a titan like him, even if he only played around with her for 2 or 3 years, the crumbs of wealth he would drop would be enough for her to live comfortably for the rest of her life. But as for whether she could land Caleb, she wasn't confident at all. She touched up her makeup, put on her professional bank uniform, and a pair of sheer gossamer thin black stockings, topped off with black pointed toe heels. The mature office lady vibe was unmistakable. Standing at the entrance of the bank, Caleb arrived just a few minutes later. He pulled up and opened the car door, and Tiffany immediately hopped into the passenger seat. As soon as she got in, Tiffany said with warmth and enthusiasm, "Hello, Mr. Gray." Before she had even climbed in, Caleb had already checked her out. Now that she was right beside him in the car, he could see her even more clearly. Delicate, slightly arched eyebrows, cheeks touched with a hint of blush, her face as lovely as a peach blossom. Her large, fluttering eyes were full of seductive charm. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and her slender swan-like neck was fair and delicate. The black uniform over a white blouse couldn't hide the curves of her figure, especially from Caleb's perspective. It was truly a breathtaking sight from every angle. The black professional pencil skirt gave way to a pair of long, gorgeous legs, wrapped in black stockings, radiating allure. Her figure was top tier. Caleb gave her a silent thumbs up in his mind. Sensing Caleb's gaze, Tiffany felt a surge of secret joy. She tilted her head slightly and casually brushed her long hair back, looking even more captivating. Then she pulled the seatbelt across her chest, and as the strap tightened, it emphasized her curves even more. Caleb asked casually as he drove, "So, you know a lot about luxury brands?" Since this was her area of expertise, Tiffany replied with immediate confidence, "Yes. Because, in my line of work, I frequently collaborate with many of the luxury boutiques here in the city. Plus, I personally enjoy these things, so I've made it a point to learn as much as I can." Looking at Tiffany's exquisite, beautiful face, Caleb felt a stir in his heart. Just yesterday morning, before he started cashing in, he was just an average guy. A corporate drone, a cog in the machine, an ordinary office worker. If things had continued normally, Tiffany wouldn't have given him a second glance in her entire life. But now, Tiffany was being incredibly gentle and humble, exhibiting a rare and alluring charm just for him. The car soon arrived at the International Plaza. They parked and headed toward the mall. A Ferrari supercar was parked there, but there wasn't a massive crowd of mindless onlookers like you see in some novels. Instead, most people just snapped a quick photo and moved on. The pace of Deep City was fast. Everyone was busy grinding for a living. Who had the time to stand around gawking and gossiping all day? After getting out of the car, Caleb secretly observed Tiffany as they walked. She was about 5'6", tall and slender, with a graceful figure. In her heels, she stood around 5'8". Caleb was sizing up Tiffany, and Tiffany was also quietly sizing up Caleb. He was dressed simply, in cheap clothes worth maybe a few $100. It didn't match his status as a multi-billionaire. Of course, maybe he just liked being low-key. He looked to be about 6'1", with a tall, upright posture, and a handsome face. He wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, but he definitely looked good. Of course, he was still a far cry from the looks of my readers. The International Plaza was the premier mall in Deep City. Almost every luxury brand you could name had a boutique here. Famous names like Dior, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Cartier, Versace, Armani, Givenchy, and more, spanning men's fashion, women's wear, watches, jewelry, and every other category. As Tiffany gave Caleb the tour, she led him inside. "Mr. Gray, you mentioned you wanted to buy men's clothes and watches. In that case, I'd recommend Hermès, Armani, and Zegna. They're all excellent. They offer both business and casual styles, which are perfect for a successful young man like you. And for watches, you could look at Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet, or Breguet." Caleb only had a passing knowledge of these brands. He thought for a moment and said, "All right, let's go check out Zegna." The moment they stepped into the Zegna boutique, several sales associates immediately rushed over. Luxury stores rarely saw heavy crowds, so the staff usually had quite a bit of free time. Tiffany stepped forward and said, "Ms. Lee, this is a premier VIP client from our bank. Mr. Gray is here today specifically to pick out some new clothes." Ms. Lee was the store manager. Dressed in a professional uniform, she said with a broad smile, "Hello, Mr. Gray. Welcome to our store. Are there any styles you're interested in? Or would you like me to provide some recommendations?" Ms. Lee worked with Tiffany often, and they were quite well acquainted. She had never seen Tiffany personally escort a bank VIP to shop for clothes before. It stood to reason that this plainly dressed Mr. Gray must be a multi-billionaire. As for why a billionaire would dress like that, she didn't quite understand, but it didn't dampen her enthusiasm one bit. Caleb gave the clothes in the store a quick scan and said, "Based on my measurements, bring me 4 outfits, 20,000s, and 2 casual." Ms. Lee said immediately, "Of course, Mr. Gray. Please wait just a moment." As professional retail associates, they styled outfits for clients every day, so it was second nature to them. With just a glance at Caleb's build, she was able to pick out the perfect pairings. In the end, he took all 4 outfits. Caleb changed into one of the casual sets on the spot, had his old clothes bagged up, and dropped them straight into a donation bin outside. Of course, Caleb didn't stop at just one brand. He also visited Hermès, Dior, Armani, and several others. Altogether, he bought nearly 20 outfits, covering all 4 seasons, and including both business and casual styles. He spent a total of $1.5 million. Jackets, coats, pants, shoes, shirts, ties, and belts. He got it all. The price tag was truly staggering, but Caleb didn't hesitate for a second when it came to spending. After all, he had over $800 billion. Why worry? Of course, when the system was about to leave, For Caleb's own safety, it didn't deposit the entire amount into his account at once. Currently, there was 50 billion in his commercial bank account. It's worth noting that the bank had already upgraded Caleb's bank card to the highest tier possible. Most major national banks, not counting private ones, have fixed tiers for their savings accounts. They follow a set structure. The lowest is the standard white card, used by the average person on the street. One level up is the blue card, for those who are slightly better off. Higher than that is the gold card. Reaching the gold card tier means you're considered quite wealthy by normal standards. Above that is the black card, which is a massive status symbol. But the absolute highest is the diamond level card. A diamond savings card is the top tier offering from the 5 major state banks. It is the ultimate savings tier, representing an astronomical level of wealth. Hollywood lie. In addition, the commercial bank had issued Caleb a diamond tier credit card with a 10 billion limit. Not that Caleb would ever need to use it. It's actually quite ironic. Rich people don't necessarily need these things, yet banks are desperate to give them away. Meanwhile, ordinary people need them just to get by. But the banks refuse to give them even a cent. It's quite the paradox. The rest of the money was held in offshore financial institutions. Whenever Caleb wanted some, he could just send a request for any specific amount to the number 1034567897, and the funds would be transferred instantly. Don't ask how. It was just the system's reality-bending power at work. Now that his clothes were taken care of, Caleb planned to buy a watch. These were all part of a basic ensemble. He didn't have the money before, so it was fine. But now that he was rich, he wasn't going to shortchange himself. He wasn't some urban dragon king, or Asura war god from a web novel. Why bother dressing like a slob? Just to force a reaction out of people? When it comes to watches, Patek Philippe is the obvious choice. After all, the brand is currently the undisputed #1 in the world. Buying a Patek Philippe sometimes requires asset verification, but sometimes it doesn't. With Tiffany by his side, however, he obviously didn't have to worry about that process. After looking through several models, Caleb finally found the one he wanted. The Patek Philippe Grand Complications, Ref 630G0110. It featured a blue dial and a sapphire crystal face. The materials looked absolutely magnificent. Of course, the price was just as impressive. A cool 31.5 million. Caleb swiped his card without blinking. Beside him, Tiffany was green with envy. She had always dreamed of living a life of luxury. Watching Caleb spend money like water, she was absolutely enthralled. But she knew it was just a dream for now. Dreams and her reality were two very different things. Coming out of the Patek Philippe boutique, Caleb was a completely new man, dressed head to toe in luxury brands, and wearing a top-tier timepiece. Since he had bought so many clothes, Caleb had the store arrange for a delivery later. Otherwise, he'd never be able to carry all those bags himself. He checked the time. It was already past noon. Caleb realized he was starting to get hungry. He turned to Tiffany and asked, "Are there any good restaurants around here? I'll treat you to lunch, to make up for all your hard work." "Lunch?" Tiffany's eyes lit up. "It depends on what you're in the mood for. There's hot pot, Japanese, Cantonese, Sichuan. They have everything here." Caleb had never eaten at a high-end place before, so he just said, "I'll leave it to you." "Got any recommendations?" Tiffany thought for a moment. "There's a Western place nearby that's quite good," she said. "But the price, but—" She looked at Caleb cautiously. She didn't know what he was thinking. Sure, he spent money like water, but that was on himself for clothes and watches. He might not be as willing to splurge on a meal for her. Caleb just said nonchalantly, "Let's go." The steakhouse was indeed very expensive. Caleb gave the menu a quick scan. Ordering 2 steaks already cost several $1,000s. But Caleb was here to experience the high life, so he didn't give the prices a second thought. It's not like a single meal was going to cost 800 billion, right? The red wine selection was great too, but Caleb still had to drive. So he skipped the alcohol. The steak tasted fine, but Caleb felt it didn't hold a candle to Chinese food. It felt a bit strange to him, like a caveman eating beef. Just add some seasoning, serve it with an egg and some noodles, and you're good to go. The beef wasn't exactly tender either. He realized that he couldn't just eat out every single day. He needed to consider hiring a personal chef. Plus, he'd need someone to take care of the house. But there was no rush for that, because Caleb hadn't even decided which house he was going to live in yet. He'd bought so many in one go, Yet he hadn't even seen any of them in person. Since he had nothing to do this afternoon, he figured he'd go check them out. As the meal drew to a close, Tiffany realized she still hadn't made a real move on Caleb. Their interaction was still strictly client and employee. She knew Caleb wasn't officially her client. He hadn't yet designated a specific personal banking assistant. All 10 of them were competing fiercely for the spot. If she missed her chance today, what if someone else took over next time? Watching Caleb focused on his food, Tiffany decided to go for it. She didn't believe for a second that any man was immune to temptation. Caleb was just trying to decide which property to visit first, when he suddenly felt something was off. He didn't need to be told what she was up to. Naturally, Caleb wasn't going to turn her down. Seeing that Caleb was only squeezing her foot but didn't actually respond, Tiffany got a bit anxious. She lowered her voice and said, "Caleb, I want to be with you." Caleb gave a small smile. He set down the glass in his hand and said, "I don't do relationships." Tiffany didn't back down. "I can be your mistress." Mistress? Caleb found that a bit amusing. Tiffany ignored his grin and said with a straight face, "I'm still a virgin, you know." Caleb finally started to take her seriously. "You're still a virgin?" To be honest, Caleb was a bit skeptical. He'd always heard about the infamous trilogy of bankers, nurses, and flight attendants. He didn't know exactly how wild those industries were, but he'd seen plenty of juicy scandals in the news. It was already a bombshell revelation. With a face and figure like Tiffany's, Caleb found it hard to believe that she hadn't faced any casting couch politics. Tiffany blurted out immediately, "It's true! Caleb, I really am a virgin. You can take me to the hospital for an exam if you want." Hearing this, Caleb finally believed her. If she was willing to go to the hospital, she clearly wasn't lying. Especially with someone as wealthy as him, Tiffany had to know the price of deceiving him. At the very least, he could make her lose her job. If he wanted to be cruel, he could make her entire life a nightmare. Since Caleb had his money spread across all the major banks, blacklisting her from the entire industry would be child's play. If he truly set his mind to it, given the dozens of industries he'd invested in, and the companies he partnered with, he could effectively wipe her out on a massive scale. He could make it so she'd never find work in Deep City again. That was the sheer power of wealth. They say money makes the world go round, but that doesn't quite cover it. Money can bend reality itself to your will. If she really was a virgin, Caleb felt a surge of heat rising within him. In all fairness, Tiffany's looks and body were top tier. Even among the elite personal assistants at the bank, she was a standout. Her wanting to be his mistress was obviously about his money, but Caleb didn't care. He had money to burn. Of course, having money was one thing. Knowing how to spend it was another. Caleb looked at Tiffany's charming face and said, "I'm a little curious. How you managed to stay a virgin until now? You must have a lot of suitors. And surely you've dated before?" Tiffany looked a bit embarrassed, but she answered anyway, "I have been in relationships before, but I never gave myself away. I didn't want to be reckless about it. As for suitors, to be honest, there were many. But I knew exactly what they were thinking. They just lusted after my looks and my body. Poor. They didn't truly love me. I'm not against sex before marriage. I'm just afraid of settling for the wrong man. The truth is, I'm very realistic. What I want is money. I want a good life. I want to buy whatever I want and travel the world without having to work. Unfortunately, I didn't have the means to do that on my own." Caleb nodded and said, "I see. I think I understand now." Tiffany continued, "I don't try to hide the fact that I'm a gold digger, but I don't go around hurting ordinary guys. Like with my suitors, if they didn't meet my requirements, I didn't lead them on. I told them clearly that it wasn't going to happen, and I never accepted their money." Caleb took a closer look at Tiffany. She was quite something. If she had led them on, she would have been fish farming, which usually ends in disaster when things blow up. But by rejecting them from the start, even if she landed a rich man later, she wouldn't have any messy baggage following her. She kept it clean. Smart. Very smart. Very smart. Seeing Caleb lost in thought, Tiffany whispered, "Caleb, do you think I'm suitable?" Caleb smiled. Tiffany was undoubtedly a clever woman. She knew exactly what to do and what to avoid to stay in a man's good graces. He took a sip of his drink. "I'll start by giving you a Porsche," he said, "and I have an apartment you can stay in for the time being. The rest is up to you." Tiffany was ecstatic. "Caleb," she said, "I promise I'll be very obedient. I'll be a good girl." Caleb nodded in satisfaction. Alright, we'll start with a trial period. But if you don't make the cut, I'll still give you a breakup fee. That fee, of course, was hush money. He didn't want her going around saying Caleb had used her. A viral tell-all post would be a real headache. Caleb wasn't afraid of it, but he preferred avoiding unnecessary trouble. Okay, Caleb, I'll definitely do as I'm told. Tiffany looked sweet and submissive on the outside, but she was screaming with joy on the inside. Finally, she'd grabbed her chance. As long as she played her cards right, the other 9 girls wouldn't stand a chance. After the meal, Caleb called the server over for the check. He turned to Tiffany and said, I'm going to check out some properties this afternoon. If you're free, come with me. Of course, Caleb. I'd love to see your new places. Tiffany's face was full of anticipation. A single meal had cost over $20,000, and that was just for a casual lunch. Tiffany clicked her tongue at the bill. Her monthly salary was barely $10,000. She couldn't even afford half a meal here. With so many properties to choose from, Caleb randomly picked one at the Arc de Triomphe. This unit was a massive luxury flat, spanning over 3,600 square feet. The total cost had been $92 million. However, the interior was already fully decorated, and the management had just finished cleaning it. After verifying his access, Caleb parked the car in the underground garage and headed up with Tiffany. The building featured a private elevator for each unit. Without the access card, you couldn't even reach the floor. It was incredibly secure. Caleb's unit was on the 21st floor. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-living-room, 4-bathroom layout, spacious and comfortable. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, you could see the river in the distance, with ships passing by. The night view from here would be absolutely stunning, capturing all the vibrant charm of the city after dark. Having a mistress, it was the kind of thing he'd only dreamed about before. Now, it was actually happening. Caleb couldn't help but marvel at how unpredictable life was. But Caleb knew that in his future, there wouldn't be just one woman. Tiffany understood this too. From the very beginning, she had accepted the reality of being a kept woman, the life of a mistress. She even knew that one day Caleb might call her over to meet, eat, and chat with his other sisters. But none of that mattered to her. Working at the bank, she had seen too many wealthy men to know that none of them were ever faithful. The most decent ones still had at least 3 mistresses. As they say, the environment shapes the person. Tiffany stood by the window, staring blankly at the scenery outside, lost in her own thoughts. Caleb took a walk around the place. Basically, everything he needed was there. Air conditioning, a refrigerator, pots, pans, it was all there. It was completely move-in ready. Caleb had seen enough. Then he plopped down on the sofa. What are you thinking about? He asked. Tiffany said softly, look outside. This city is so vibrant. Ordinary people like us struggle for a lifetime, and we still can't truly belong here. It feels like we're just wasting our youth. Caleb said calmly, Deep City is indeed bustling. She's like a cold-hearted mistress. If you're broke, she looks down on you. But if you're rich, she lets you live like royalty. Tiffany sighed and said, that's a good metaphor. But why put it that way? Caleb laughed, just speaking from the heart. Tiffany gave him a pouting look. The mood is totally gone now. She slowly walked over and sat beside Caleb. She leaned against the man's chest. Caleb gently stroked her hair, holding her soft, delicate waist. He smelled her captivating scent, feeling a stir of desire. How do you like this place? Caleb asked suddenly. Tiffany nodded. It's wonderful. It's like a dream. I could never afford this even if I worked my whole life. Caleb gave a light laugh. You'll live here from now on. If you stay with me for 3 years, I'll give the deed to this place to you. Tiffany's heart pounded. By following this man, with just a single word from him, she could live among the elite. And from then on, she'd never have to struggle in Deep City again. Never again would she have to save for months, just to buy a designer bag. Never again would she have to think about grinding for decades, just to buy an average home. And so, Tiffany hesitated no longer. Feeling that enough time had passed, Caleb patted her. Let's get up, he said. We're going out to eat. Okay. Tiffany said softly, what do you want to eat? Should we get something high energy? I'm worried you're too tired. The two of them finally got up, changed their clothes, and headed down to the garage at a leisurely pace. They drove off. While they were eating, Tiffany finally couldn't help but ask a question. Caleb, how many others are there besides me? Caleb was stunned for a moment. He shook his head and said, there's no one else. Just you. Just me? Tiffany asked in surprise. She thought Caleb had several others on the side, and she was wondering how she would compete. She hadn't expected Caleb to have no other women. This truly came as a surprise to her. Caleb curled his lip and said, "Just one for now." Tiffany nodded slightly. "I understand." She had been prepared for this long ago, so she could naturally accept it. However, she still felt a bit of unease. It wasn't that she was jealous. After all, they had known each other for a very short time. The relationship was built entirely on money. As for how much she actually liked him, that was debatable. One liked the money, the other lusted after beauty. It was just a mutual exchange of needs. So Tiffany felt mostly a sense of insecurity. She feared that one day, Caleb would find a better woman and discard her. Therefore, she absolutely had to improve herself. Tiffany made a silent vow. She planned to go back and restudy a few books. Advanced Guide to Being a High-End Green Tea Girl. How to Win a Man's Heart. The Importance of Bedside Manner. The Mindset of a Kept Woman. Self-Cultivation for a Proper Mistress. She had bought these books before, but she had been too busy, so she had barely read them. Now, it seemed, it was absolutely necessary to study them closely. No man is immune to lust, unless he's stopped breathing, and men all love the green tea type. Oh wait, maybe green tea isn't the right term. There's no such thing as green tea. They're just sweet younger sisters who care about their older brothers. What's wrong with being that type? They shower you with warmth and concern. They know exactly what you need. They can thoughtfully coax and take care of you in every way. No matter where you go or what you do, they'll always ask for your opinion, giving you a sense of being fully respected, and making you feel like the center of their world. What a wonderful little sister. Caleb loved that kind of girl. Then again, what man wouldn't? Just look at the tourism in Aspen. The local girls are just ordinary. But those little tourists? They're absolute treasures. They have the local guys smitten beyond belief. With her mind made up, Tiffany said softly, "Caleb, if you find someone else in the future, can you please not abandon me? I only want to be with you." Her voice was tender and seductive, paired with her shimmering eyes. And that damsel in distress look? What man could resist? Caleb was a bit surprised. He had no idea Tiffany's inner monologue was so dramatic. But Tiffany had given him her first time after all. As long as she didn't make any major mistakes, he could be quite tolerant. "Don't worry," he said softly. "As long as you behave and don't mess up, I won't let you go," Tiffany said with a joyful face. "Thank you, Caleb. You're the best. I love you." By the time he woke up the next morning, Tiffany had already gone to work. There was a message from her on Caleb's phone. Caleb rubbed his head and went to freshen up. Life after becoming rich, Caleb still wasn't quite used to it. No work to go to. No need to wake up early. He could sleep for as long as he wanted. He could do whatever he pleased. It still felt a bit surreal to him, like it was all a dream. Once Caleb was ready, he planned to head out and buy a few things. Even though he already had the house, the cars, the cash, and the girl, his basic equipment still needed an upgrade, like getting a new phone or a new computer. While he was at it, he could go check on the towers today. He'd spent $30 billion on 2 skyscrapers. He couldn't just never go and take a look. Caleb went to a high-end tech store. First, he bought the Titan 999 Pro model. Then he bought a top-tier custom computer. The tech resources in Deep City were top-notch. For the high-end PC setup, he spent nearly $1 million. He might not even use it much, but it made him happy. Money well spent, as far as he was concerned. Once that was taken care of, Caleb drove toward the Twin Towers. The 2 buildings sat right on the banks of the Hudson River. They looked magnificent. It had taken a total of 8 years to complete the construction of both towers. Their primary uses were for offices, a hotel, commercial space, and observation decks. Both buildings were 108 stories tall, reaching a height of 1,800 feet. There were also 5 underground levels beneath the main towers. There are podium buildings adjacent to the main towers, structurally integrated with the primary skyscrapers, serving as auxiliary facilities. The total floor area is approximately 10 million square feet, with roughly 8 million square feet above ground, and 2 million square feet across the basement levels. The entire site covers an area of about 1 million square feet. Caleb stood at the base of the structures, looking up at the 2 massive skyscrapers, his heart swelling with a sense of grand ambition. Caleb wandered through the buildings, inspecting the layout and the overall design. The podium section isn't particularly tall, consisting of only 10 floors, with an architectural style geared toward a high-end shopping mall aesthetic. Caleb had more or less mapped out his vision during his tour. The first through fourth floors would serve as the main shopping mall, with each level dedicated to something different. The first floor would be for cosmetics, gathering various mid to high-end luxury brands. The second floor for women's fashion, the third for men's apparel, and the fourth floor dedicated to children's wear. Starting from the fifth floor and up, he could consider other retail, such as daily necessities, entertainment facilities, and kitchenware. He could also set aside space for a high-end gym and a luxury cinema. Caleb planned to turn the sixth and seventh floors into a dining zone, filled with food stalls and upscale restaurants, along with various trendy tea and cafe shops. The eighth and ninth floors would be the rooftop parking lot, and the 10th floor would be dedicated office space. The podium buildings are surrounded by a spiral ramp system, allowing vehicles to drive directly up the building, making this rooftop parking lot a very convenient and practical choice. With that, the plan for all 10 floors of the podium buildings was settled. As for the main towers, Caleb planned to use the 5 basement levels as follows: 2 floors for a massive supermarket, and 3 floors dedicated solely to parking. Given the height of the towers, once they were fully operational, the foot traffic would be immense, so 3 floors of parking was the bare minimum. The first floor lobby of the main towers would serve as the grand entrance, acting as the primary reception hall for his future corporate headquarters. It could also be used to host various exhibitions. Floors 2 through 5 would be the convention center, containing auditoriums and multifunctional conference rooms. In this conference hub, there would be a massive 20,000 square foot pillarless ballroom with 30-foot high ceilings. It could be equipped with massive LED screens and other advanced electronic equipment. It would be perfect for large annual galas, product launches, and major business forums. It was truly a premier venue. The auditorium area would feature a semicircular banquet hall with an outdoor terrace and panoramic views spanning 12,000 square feet with 25-foot ceilings. It would also be fitted with LED displays, projection equipment, and a surround sound system. It would be ideal for hosting parties, weddings, and similar ceremonies. The multifunctional rooms were distributed in a circular layout. Caleb looked them over. The design included 8 rooms of various sizes, suitable for different meetings or small banquets. Equipped with the latest video conferencing technology, they could facilitate real-time interactive connections worldwide. Large conferences could be split into breakout rooms, and the outer circular corridor was perfect for coffee breaks and working lunches, making it easy for attendees to network and communicate. If he expanded his operations internationally later, he could hold global video conferences at any time. Moving above the 5th floor, Caleb planned to turn the 60th floor into a fitness zone, complete with a gym, a swimming pool, a basketball court, badminton courts, and tennis courts. A comprehensive area dedicated to health and recreation. Floors 11 through 50 would be the commercial office zones, where some of his companies would eventually be relocated. Floors 51 through 55 were designed as a restaurant block, offering everything from Chinese cuisine to high-end Western dining. Once these 2 towers were fully corporatized, this would essentially be his private group cafeteria. Above that would be the luxury hotel, followed by more commercial and office space. There are many facets to the business side. Caleb had already invested in a wide range of industries. If he ever decided to go for full acquisitions, he would move those operations here. Things like advertising and design firms, talent agencies for influencers, live streaming commerce hubs, and logistics management. They would all be housed within these walls. 2 entire skyscrapers at his disposal, and they were incredibly tall. On the uppermost levels, he could set aside space for luxury apartments, to be used as staff housing. There were still some tenants who hadn't moved out yet, but CEO Shaw and his team were handling that. According to the timeline, everyone would be out within a month. Caleb also needed to find a reputable design and renovation firm to handle the build-out of his future headquarters. There was also a spacious parking lot outside the building, and the riverfront was just across the street. The foot traffic in this area was massive. Once everything was completed, this would become a pivotal commercial landmark. Caleb spent a good deal of time giving the buildings a thorough walkthrough. His overall vision was now largely solidified. He was quite satisfied with the progress. This afternoon's efforts certainly hadn't been in vain. However, he needed to hire a firm sooner rather than later. After all, For buildings of this scale, renovating them according to his specific vision required the preliminary measurement of a vast amount of data. Thinking of this, Caleb gave Arthur Sterling a call. President Sterling, I wanted to ask you something. Do you know of any high-powered design and renovation firms? I'm looking to renovate these twin towers of mine. Arthur's tone sounded a bit peculiar as he replied, Wait, didn't you invest in one yourself the other day? Did you already forget? I invested in one? Caleb looked completely blank. He had signed so many contracts that he practically forgot about them the moment the ink dried. But with Arthur's reminder, Caleb's memory started to come back. He recalled there was indeed a high-end design and renovation firm. The partner he worked with was named Marcus Wang. With that in mind, Caleb scrolled through his contacts and dialed the number. Chairman Gray. Hello, hello. The deep voice of a middle-aged man came from the other end. Caleb didn't waste any time with pleasantries. Chairman Wang, he said directly. I recall that I invested in your company, right? Marcus Wang replied immediately. Of course. You're currently our largest shareholder, holding a 35% stake, Caleb said with satisfaction. Good. I happen to have a project for you. You know those 2 towers I bought from CEO Shaw? I want to completely renovate both of them, Marcus Wang said instantly. Chairman Gray? Say no more. Consider it done. Since it's our own company's project, there absolutely won't be any issues. Caleb nodded. Take a look at the price and see how it should be calculated. And then arrange a team for me. Get them ready to measure the data first. And also, I want to walk them through my vision and ideas. Marcus Wang patted his chest and said, Don't worry, Chairman Gray. You'll definitely get the insider's rate. You're a shareholder after all. How could it be expensive? And don't worry about the staff. I'll send the company's best people to handle it, Caleb said with satisfaction. All right. Thanks for the hard work. For things that money could solve, Caleb didn't want to rely on favors. Even though he owned shares in the company, business is business, and brothers keep clear accounts. It was better to follow the standard process, to avoid any messy complications down the line. He'd finished his inspection, and after walking around for so long, Caleb was exhausted. He gave Justin a call to ask his friend out for dinner. Spit it out. I'm still at work, damn it. Justin's impatient voice came through the phone. Of course, this was because they were so close. Only then could they be so casual with each other. Caleb said, When you get off work tonight, let's grab some BBQ. You're paying, so cut the crap. I'll arrange it. Hearing this, Justin immediately perked up. I'm just waiting for the bell to ring so I can get out of here. I'll head to the usual spot immediately. I'll be waiting. It was already past 5 p.m. According to the time, the BBQ stands would be opening soon. By the time Caleb drove to the restaurant, it was nearly 7 p.m. The old spot they mentioned was actually called The Usual Spot. Its full name was The Usual Spot Tripe Hot Pot. The food there was excellent. It had been around for 20 years, and business was still booming. It was very famous in the neighborhood. About 10 minutes later, Justin rode over on his blue e-scooter, parked it in the designated zone, and strolled over leisurely. As soon as he sat down, Justin tossed Caleb a cigarette and looked around saying, Sure enough, things are different now. Now that you've struck it rich, you're making big moves. Caleb laughed heartily. I wouldn't say I'm rich. Just have a little extra cash, I guess. Justin lowered his voice and said seriously, Even though the debts are gone, there are still plenty of things you'll need to spend money on later. If you have the money, buy a house and a car, put down a down payment and pay them off slowly. If you don't have enough, then just save it for now. Don't go spending it recklessly. It's not easy making money these days. Caleb said nonchalantly, Don't worry. I cashed out enough crypto to buy a house and a car. I've already bought them and still have plenty in the bank. Justin said in disbelief, Holy crap. What the hell did you do back then? How did you end up with so much crypto? Caleb gave a sly grin. Take a guess. Justin shook his head. He was too lazy to guess. He let out a sigh. Justin said, That's great, man. You've completely turned your life around. Got a house, a car, and cash. Now you just need to find a girl and get married, and life will be smooth sailing. Caleb curled his lip. Marriage? Screw that, Justin asked in confusion. What's wrong? Not getting married? Caleb shook his head. It's too much trouble. There's a good chance I'll never get married in this lifetime. Justin fiddled with the silverware on the table and asked, What happened? Let's hear it. Did some toxic girl mess you up or something? Caleb said, Not at all. I just feel like marriage is too difficult these days. Just look at the world right now and you'll see. Justin felt helpless. But you can't just be a lonely bachelor for the rest of your life, right? Caleb sneered. What's there to be afraid of? I have money now. I can find as many mistresses as I want. I'll just find a long-term partner. Either way, I'm not getting married. I won't have to deal with all that exhausting, taxing drama. It's much simpler this way, isn't it? Look at how much it costs to get married now. The house, the car, the savings. And half the time, her personality makes her a royal pain. Why should I pay to marry a queen and worship her? I'd rather just enjoy myself. Justin deeply agreed. You got a point. With that kind of money, you could go to the spa every day for the rest of your life. Caleb lit another cigarette. Do the math. To get married in Deep City, a house, even a cheap one, costs several million. A car is another few $100,000. Then the savings, and all the other expenses. What does that add up to? And a trip to the spa? It's nothing. Even if you go twice a week, it's $1,000 at most. That's $4,000 a month, less than $50,000 a year. In 50 years, that's only $2 million. But with marriage, just look at the demands girls have today. Can you even satisfy them? And with all the scandals and divorces every day, who knows when you'll be the one getting cheated on? Why bother getting married? Just to give myself a hard time? Justin nodded repeatedly. You're absolutely right. So if you do date, just make sure you find someone with a good personality. Caleb shook his head and said, when the cost of marriage is far higher than paying for services, and the probability of a wife's moral level being lower than a sex worker's, who would still want to get married? Justin deeply agreed. A wise decision, boss. Then he added with a sneaky grin, be honest. Have you already started? Caleb didn't hide it. Yeah, I've got one. Justin gave him a thumbs up. Badass. The two were very close. How close? They had almost no secrets from each other. They could talk about anything, except for the system, of course. They'd known each other for over a decade. They'd helped each other countless times. They had long been like brothers. So except for the system, Caleb didn't plan on hiding anything from him. Soon, the BBQ and tripod pot were served. The two of them chatted while they ate. So, now that you're rich, what's the plan? Are you still working at that company? I quit. Justin wasn't surprised. And after that? Do you not plan on working for the rest of your life? Caleb said casually. It doesn't really matter anymore. The money I have is enough to live a lavish life forever. I'm so jealous. I still have to grind for a paycheck. Everyone has ambitions. It's only natural. But most people are crushed by reality and end up becoming corporate drones. Caleb chuckled and said, how about I sponsor you a bit? Justin shook his head. Nah. Brothers are brothers, but for ordinary stuff, helping each other out with a few thousand is one thing. But a house and a car in Deep City, that's not something a few thousand can fix. I'd never be able to pay back that kind of money. I'd rather work hard on my own. Slow and steady. No rush. Anyway, I'm not dating anyone right now. Actually, Justin's family used to be well off. But his parents both fell ill, needing constant surgeries and recovery time. All the family savings had been practically wiped out. On top of that, years ago Frank had lent $2 million to his own brother. The brother ended up vanishing and denying the debt. They even took each other to court, but the man has never been seen since. Under the weight of all these disasters, Justin had to work himself to the bone to support the family. Justin chewed on a skewer of BBQ and mumbled, don't worry, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to let pride get in the way. If there ever comes a day when I really can't handle it, I'll definitely ask for your help. Caleb laughed. That's more like it. As long as you say the word, I'll be there for you. Justin shook his head and said, oh, right. From that $200,000 you gave me, I still have about $30,000 or $40,000 left. I'll transfer it back to you. Caleb pushed the phone back and said, just keep it. Buy something for your parents? They just had surgery. It hasn't been easy. Caleb knew Justin's parents well. They were practically family. Justin looked at him and said, all right, I won't be formal with you then. Caleb laughed. We're best friends. What's there to be formal about? Both of us used to be burdened by debt, grinding away for paychecks. But now, all the debts are cleared, and Caleb has wealth beyond imagination. This meal was the most relaxing one they'd had in years. Even though it was just simple BBQ and beer, both of them were genuinely happy. The weight of the world had been lifted, and they could finally see hope for the future. They both drank quite a bit tonight. Beer has a much lower alcohol content than liquor, but enough of it will still get you drunk. By the time they both felt a bit tipsy, Justin waved his hand and said, "All right, that's enough. Let's head out." Caleb nodded. "Let's go." They settled the bill and walked out. Standing by the curb, Justin looked at Caleb's luxury car and whistled. "Incredible. You really did strike it rich. You're actually driving a Ferrari." Caleb laughed and said, "I could give you one if you want." Justin shook his head and refused. "Nah, I'm good." Caleb patted Justin on the shoulder and didn't say anything else. The taxi arrived quickly, and Justin headed home. Caleb's designated driver also arrived soon after. Maybe it was the alcohol hitting his head, but Caleb didn't want to go home yet. He just wanted to let loose and experience a side of life he'd never known before. "Hello, sir, where to?" the driver asked politely. Caleb closed his eyes and said, "Take me to Club XO. Caleb hadn't set foot in a club in years. He wanted to feel the thrill of the high life. Perhaps this was just the disorientation that comes with a regular guy getting suddenly rich. Once he sobered up, maybe he wouldn't feel this way anymore. Club XO was a high-end club in the city, so there was never a shortage of luxury cars at the entrance. But a Ferrari worth over $6 million was definitely a top-tier ride. The car drew countless gazes before it even came to a stop. Everyone could see that the person driving was just a hired hand, and the one in the passenger seat was the real owner. He looked like he'd already had a few drinks. The moment the car door opened, 7 or 8 club promoters rushed over. "Hello, sir. Welcome. Let me get you set up, sir." Caleb casually picked a young promoter and said, "You'll do," the young man said excitedly. "Thank you, sir. Follow me. I'll take you inside." Seeing that Caleb had already chosen someone, the others walked away, disappointed. However, the women nearby began to cluster around. Truth be told, in this society, as long as you have money, you'll realize just how proactive women can be. You don't even have to make a move. You don't even have to lift a finger before plenty of beauties start leaning in. But in Caleb's eyes, the quality of those in front of him was average. He wasn't that desperate yet. He followed the young promoter inside. The promoter gave him the rundown as they walked. "Where would you like to sit, sir?" "We have Section A and Section B. Just give me the best section. Find me a good spot." Why sit in a corner when you have money? Was he trying to make himself miserable? The promoter said enthusiastically, "You got it, sir. This way, please." He didn't even mention the minimum spend requirements. The booths in different sections all had minimums, but he had seen this man's Ferrari with his own eyes. That was a multi-million-dollar supercar. Mentioning a minimum spend to someone like that was just asking for trouble. Caleb was soon led to a booth. It was a very spacious spot, easily able to fit over a dozen people. Looking straight ahead, he could see the stage perfectly. It was a great location. The promoter brought over a tablet and handed it to Caleb. "What are we drinking tonight, sir?" Caleb had never been to a club, so he wasn't familiar with any of this. But fortunately, everything had a price tag next to it. After a quick scroll, Caleb said, "I'll take this Golden Dragon set, the one for 88.1088. Give me 5 of those, and also a bottle each of Hennessy, Martell, and Remy Martin. Let's see how those are." These were the most expensive items on the list, costing thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Then Caleb ordered some regular drinks and snacks, adding another 10,000 or so. The promoter was speechless. "Sir, are you sure about 5 of the Golden Dragon sets?" Even though Caleb was a novice, he'd heard of them before. The Golden Dragon seemed to be the most high-end option in the club. If he was going out, he was going to do it right. Yes. It was just one word, but it was short and to the point. The promoter swallowed hard. "Of course, sir. Just a moment while I process the card." In an instant, $500,000 was charged. $500,000. Even though this city was a major economic hub in America, spending $500,000 in one night at a club made him a legendary client. Normally, unless someone was a complete fool or had more money than sense, no one spent like that. Rich heirs aren't stingy, but they're very smart. They'll spend a few thousand to pick up girls. As for throwing away hundreds of thousands every day, they're rich, not stupid. People like Caleb, who throw away $500,000 in a night, existed, but they were incredibly rare. He was practically a massive sucker. Caleb didn't know the etiquette, but he didn't care. With over 800 billion, if you, the reader, had that kind of money, you'd probably be playing even harder than he was. The promoter sat down enthusiastically next to Caleb. "Are you here by yourself, sir?" Caleb swayed his head slightly and nodded firmly. "Yeah, all alone," the promoter said immediately. "Then let me find some people to keep you company." "Should I arrange some girls for you, sir?" Caleb, feeling a bit tipsy, had his eyes light up as he said, "Sure, but I only want high quality. Don't bother with the average ones." The promoter patted his chest and said, "Sir, don't you worry. I absolutely won't let any plain Janes mix in." With that, he immediately pulled out his phone and sent a message to an Instagram group at Club XO. "Got a top-tier whale here? $500,000 in spending. Only the absolute best. Who's available right now?" He tagged everyone in the group. He thought about it for a second and added another line. "If your photos are over-edited, don't come looking for a fight." In less than a minute, his phone began vibrating like crazy. It was flooded with photos from various beauties. The promoter immediately handed the phone to Caleb and said, "Sir, take a look. Pick whoever catches your eye." Caleb curiously took the phone and began scrolling. This was a high-end nightlife group, maxed out at 500 people. But Caleb didn't care about that. He was focused on the photos being sent. He had to admit, Deep City really did have a lot of beauties. Even without heavy Photoshop, there were many stunning women. 18-year-old innocent college girls, 25-year-old cool mature types, 30-year-old sophisticated women. Every variety was there. Caleb casually picked 4. He chose a mix of styles: innocent, icy and elegant, pure desire, style, and a more provocative type. Based on their looks, they all seemed to be between 20 and 25. However, he didn't fully trust the photos. He'd wait until they showed up to judge. The promoter quickly messaged the 4 of them, and they headed over immediately. Soon, Caleb's drinks arrived. A group of girls in bikinis held trays high, bringing out every bottle he had ordered. Under the dim lights, the Golden Dragon set and the special lighting were blindingly bright. The entire club could see it. Holy crap. That guy ordered all that by himself? How much does that even cost? Hundreds of thousands, easily. "Hey girls, he's alone. Do we have a shot?" The crowd was buzzing with gossip. People further away stood up, just to get a look. Quite a few girls started crowding around the booth, wanting to sit next to Caleb. But most of them weren't that impressive in the looks department. They were just average club pretty. Caleb naturally had no interest in them. He swayed his body to the thunderous music. In an environment this decadent, it's incredibly easy to lose oneself. Before long, a beautiful girl walked up. "Hello, sir. I'm Misty." Caleb looked up at her. She had a perfect, delicate, heart-shaped face, blunt bangs, and long hair over her shoulders. She looked incredibly pure and innocent, but Caleb knew better. Girls who hung out in the nightlife scene were rarely truly innocent. They just played whatever style the customer liked. If you wanted to see it, they could switch styles in a minute, from pure to provocative, from icy to cute. Women were the ultimate shapeshifters. Misty was wearing a white short-sleeve tee and a black mini-skirt, showing off a stretch of smooth, gorgeous legs. She was even wearing white sneakers. Man, she really leaned into the innocent route. She certainly looked the part, and she was undeniably beautiful. She'd be a top-tier campus belle at any university. Caleb patted the seat next to him and said, "Sit down." This was the first of the 4 girls from the group. There were still 3 more coming, likely because Caleb's spending was so legendary. The other 3 girls all arrived in under 5 minutes. The second one was a beauty wearing gold-rimmed glasses. She looked to be in her early 20s, wearing a white button-down shirt. That cool, intellectual vibe was very captivating. The third was a pure desire, style beauty, wearing a blue slip dress, white stockings, and white sneakers. The last one was a more provocative beauty, wearing a sheer black lace dress that was so short it barely covered her. She also wore sheer black stockings and black pointed toe heels with red soles. She was pure, sultry allure. Caleb observed the 4 of them, and they were all sizing him up as well. Spending $500,000 in one night at a club was top-tier behavior in any city. But would he actually open all the bottles? Usually, people just store the excess. Most of it is just for show. But compared to average guys, this level of spending was terrifying. Little did they know. Once Caleb saw all 4 beauties were present, he waved his hand and said, "Since everyone's here, let's open all the bottles. Let's get this party started." The group cheered with excitement. The 4 girls began swarming Caleb. vying for his attention. They couldn't help it. His wealth was simply too immense. Caleb didn't mind. He was out to have fun after all, might as well enjoy it. Under the flashing lights, the club's atmosphere flickered between light and dark, occasionally illuminating the girls' slender waists and long legs. Their fair skin was enticing and delicate. Alcohol, beauties, and music blended together, creating an intoxicating rush. He lost himself in the decadent passage of time. They partied until nearly 2,000 a.m. Caleb had had quite a bit to drink by then. Looking at the few remaining drops on the table, Caleb waved them off. "All right, I had a great time tonight, but it's time to head home." Caleb leaned lazily against the car window, watching the scenery pass by, with a smile on his face. Life always felt like a dream, broke and destitute one day, wildly wealthy the next. The twists of fate are a mystery. Who can ever truly explain them? As for starting a company or anything like that, Caleb didn't necessarily care. He'd done it before just to trigger the cashback. He'd just keep enough to make sure he never went hungry again. He'd played enough, and bought enough, for a moment. Caleb actually didn't know what to do with himself. While he was driving aimlessly through the streets, Caleb suddenly received a phone call. "Hello, Mr. Gray. I'm calling from Starfish Yachts. The yachts you ordered from our company have finished their maintenance and prep work. They're ready for pickup whenever you like. When would you like to come take a look?" Caleb remembered now. He'd bought several yachts that day. It seemed they were finally ready. But Caleb found himself in a bit of a dilemma. Buying a yacht was the easy part, but there was a lot of logistical work involved afterward. For example, the daily docking issues for a yacht, and the matter of yacht maintenance and upkeep. These were all chores. But Caleb didn't care about money anymore. He just wanted to have a good time. He had never played around with yachts before. So now that he had one, he naturally wanted to experience it. Starfish Yachts had a branch right here in Deep City. Caleb drove his Ferrari and arrived at the Starfish Yachts coastal office an hour later. Faced with such a major client, the deputy manager, Leo, personally came out to receive him. "Hello, Mr. Gray. Shall we go take a look at the yacht now?" Caleb nodded and said, "Let's go." He was already growing impatient. Arriving at the waterfront, Caleb finally laid eyes on the vessel. It was a 100-foot yacht, equipped with a master suite, guest cabins, bathrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a cockpit, a deck, a karaoke lounge, satellite navigation, generators, radar, jet skis, and more. It featured every kind of living and entertainment amenity. The overall style was dominated by blue and white, simple, elegant, and radiating a youthful energy. It was perfect for a young person's getaway. At this scale, it was more than enough for a party of 10 to 20 people. Additionally, you will need a captain, a helmsman, a deckhand, a first mate, sailors, and service staff. It adds up to about 10 crew members in total. As for the docking of this yacht, you can choose to dock it at our company facility, or at a specialized berthing port. Either is fine. Under Leo's explanation, Caleb gradually began to understand how these things worked. Yachts are generally docked at shipyards, or specific metropolitan berthing spots. However, one must pay a berthing fee, calculating based on Caleb's yacht. At a length of 100 feet, the current price was roughly 25 per foot per day. If calculated at 25 per foot, that was 2,500 a day times 365 days. The annual docking fee was just over 900,000. Not only that, there were also maintenance costs. Annual maintenance fees were around 800,000 as well. Even if it wasn't used, it would cost 1.7 million a year. Furthermore, the staff needed their salaries paid. For example, a captain nowadays cost about $10,000 a month. Larger boats would be more expensive. If he wanted a permanent, fixed team, it would cost nearly 100,000 a month. That was another 1.2 million in annual expenses. All in all, it came to nearly 3 million a year. For Caleb, who possessed over 800 billion, he didn't care in the slightest. Caleb immediately said, "All right, Leo, get this set up for me. I want a long-term berthing spot in Deep City, and I'll pay by the year. I also need a full crew for the cruise. I trust that Starfish Yachts has trained personnel available. Also, for the scheduled annual maintenance notifications, I'll just leave that in your hands." Leo was overjoyed. This was a stable, major client for the year. He absolutely had to provide top-tier service. One must understand that high-end yachts are indeed expensive. Buying a yacht is something many wealthy people can manage. but long-term maintenance, docking, and salaries. These three things can easily drain a person. Many simply cannot sustain the cost. Therefore, this entire industry is currently in a stage where clients are relatively few. Most yachts are used by clubs to be rented out for profit. For instance, in coastal cities, if you go to any yacht club, there are plenty of small to mid-sized yachts to choose from. You can rent one for a day and enjoy various activities. A client like Caleb, who could provide millions a year, was quite rare. He immediately said, "Don't you worry, Mr. Gray. We will certainly get everything arranged for you. When do you plan to head out to sea? I'll assemble the crew for you on my end." Caleb thought for a moment and said, "In the next day or two. I want a fixed crew on an annual contract too. Let's head to Miami." After struggling for decades, it was finally time to enjoy himself. Next, Caleb swiped his card. The berthing spot would be at the deep city port. Starfish would handle the logistics. He also paid the salaries and other fees in advance. For this trip to the coast, Caleb didn't plan on bringing Tiffany along. For one, Tiffany still had to work, and secondly, Caleb wanted to see if he could find other opportunities. Bringing her would be inconvenient. After leaving, Caleb gave Tiffany a call. "Let's go out for dinner tonight." "Okay, Caleb." Tiffany didn't even ask where they were going. She knew Caleb wouldn't treat her poorly. Caleb drove aimlessly through the streets to catch the breeze. Once, he had thought about how to turn his life around, how to make money, and how to fight for a future. But now that he had everything, Caleb actually didn't know what to do with himself. Perhaps the void that follows sudden wealth for an ordinary person is real. For dinner, Caleb booked a high-end steakhouse, caviar, ribeye, desserts, and artisan pizza. A casual meal cost him $20,000. Back at the luxury flat in Arc de Triomphe, Tiffany did a quick tidy-up and went to take a shower. Caleb stood lazily by the window, watching the night scenery outside. Deep City was a magnificent place. But if you had no money, you were just a drifter here, struggling for survival every day, bowing your head just to chase a few pennies. If you were rich, however, then Deep City was a stunning beauty, just waiting for your affection. Before long, Tiffany spoke from behind him. "Caleb, why don't you go wash up too?" "All right." Caleb undressed and walked into the bathroom. As the hot water hit him, his whole body felt a lot more relaxed. The next morning, Caleb left a key for her. "This is the key to the Maserati Quattroporte," he said. "The car is in the garage, the red one. I figured you'd like it. Also, I transferred $200,000 to you. Use it for gas and meals." A Maserati Quattroporte and $200,000. Tiffany felt a surge of opulence wash over her. That was the scent of money. Tiffany headed out to leave. After all, she had to go to work. Caleb, meanwhile, leisurely went downstairs to grab a bite. Just then, Leo called him. "Hello, Mr. Gray. The crew has been fully assembled on my end. We are ready to set sail at any time." Caleb was instantly excited. A trip out to sea. Off to Miami. He checked the time and said, "Fine, we'll leave tonight. Stock up on food, vegetables, and fruit. We're heading to Miami." "Of course, Mr. Gray. No problem at all. The yacht is currently at our coastal berth, on standby. What do I need to prepare for Miami?" Normal people going on vacation usually prepare a change of clothes, swimsuits, backpacks, and all kinds of gear. Caleb didn't bother with any of that. He just wore a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and grabbed his bank card. That was enough. Finally, he threw on a pair of sunglasses and headed straight out the door. He chose not to drive. After all, leaving his car at the marina for that long wouldn't be very practical. He hailed a random cab by the roadside and headed straight for the marina. When he arrived at the marina, Leo was already there waiting for him. "Mr. Gray, over here. Let me show you around. Your berth and crew are all ready and waiting. We can set sail whenever you're ready." Caleb was very pleased with this level of service and professionalism. Everything was arranged perfectly, without him having to lift a finger. As they say, money makes the world go round. Or rather, with enough money, you can make the impossible happen. The berth was massive, equipped with specialized defenses against the wind and waves. To minimize any impact or wear on the hull, the lines were secured to the dock. Leo led Caleb into the cabin. A group of people stood gathered in the cabin and on the deck. Leo clapped his hands and announced, "Listen up, everyone. The gentleman beside me is your new boss, Mr. Caleb Gray. Mr. Gray has already prepaid your entire salary for the coming year, so for the next 12 months, you are to follow his every instruction. You are on call 24 hours a day. Because Mr. Gray is paying a premium rate, 50% above the standard industry wage. Thank you, boss. The crew all bowed in unison to show their gratitude. Then, Leo leaned in and whispered softly in Caleb's ear. Mr. Gray, you can head into the inner cabin to relax now. If there's nothing else you need, we can get underway immediately. Caleb nodded in satisfaction. Fine. Let's go. Leo stepped off the yacht. Making way for departure, Caleb strolled leisurely into the inner cabin. But as soon as he stepped inside, he froze in surprise. Standing right there were 4 young, stunning women. They were all dressed in crop tops, miniskirts, and high heels. Every one of them had a beautiful face and a slender, graceful figure. Caleb almost thought he had walked into the wrong room. He was just about to turn around and walk back out, when he suddenly realized something. Wait, this is my boat. Where did these beautiful girls come from? He turned back and sized up the 4 of them once more. Holding bouquets of flowers, the 4 girls waved their slender arms, wearing warm, radiant smiles on their faces. Hello, boss. Caleb was a bit dazed and blurted out, Wait a second. Who are you? A girl in a camisole and a black miniskirt spoke up. Hello, boss. We were arranged by Mr. Leo. We're all yacht models, hired to accompany you on your vacation. Yacht models, huh? Caleb understood the situation immediately. Even though he'd never encountered them personally, he had heard plenty of stories. In coastal cities where yachts were common, there were plenty of yacht models who made a living accompanying wealthy owners on their trips. Generally speaking, these yacht models were often local college students, fashion models, or even office workers doing it part-time. Typically, the companion jobs they accepted only lasted for a few hours at a time. Most tourists just wanted a quick experience. A few hours out on the open water, a bit of partying, and then back to the dock. In that sense, many of these arrangements were strictly professional, but the spending of an average tourist was nothing compared to the big bosses and wealthy heirs. When the elite went to sea, they wanted full-time companionship. As for what that specifically entailed, well, I don't need to spell it out. You get the picture. This industry can be as clean or as messy as you make it. It's a complicated world, and things can get pretty convoluted. For a distinguished guest, Leo naturally wouldn't hire just anyone. He had to hand-pick the very best. He didn't know what Caleb's specific tastes were, but for a young man in his prime, you could never go wrong with a few beautiful women. So, Leo carefully selected 4 specific women, 2 college students, 1 professional model, and 1 office professional. They were all the wholesome type, guaranteed to be healthy with recent medical reports on file. Not to mention, their looks and physiques were all top-notch. Before they arrived, Leo had been upfront with them. Although they didn't have much experience in this, they were well aware of what the job might involve. At first, none of them were particularly interested, but when Leo mentioned that the client was a handsome, young, wealthy heir, they all had a change of heart. Leo had also made it clear that once they were out at sea, certain things might happen. He told them to be mentally prepared for anything. The 4 women had obviously thought it over carefully before agreeing to come. Caleb sat down leisurely, looking over the 4 beautiful women. He said with a chuckle. So, Leo has already paid you girls, and you're here to accompany me on this trip to Miami. Round trip, is that right? The 4 beauties answered in unison. Yes. Caleb snapped his fingers and said, Good. Come on, let's open a bottle of wine. Let's have a drink to celebrate. A beauty in a form-fitting pencil skirt immediately brought over a bottle of red wine. Hello, Mr. Gray, she said. My name is Minnie. Let me open the wine for you. Caleb glanced at her mature, seductive figure and her ample, bouncing cleavage. He said with a suggestive tone, Minnie, dash. I see you're not Minnie's at all. Minnie looked a bit shy on the surface, but she playfully tapped Caleb on the chest as if by accident. She leaned in close toward him, saying, Caleb, you're so naughty. Caleb certainly wasn't going to push her away. He pulled Minnie into his arms with one motion, a grin on his face. Me? Naughty? How so? Minnie gave Caleb a gentle, playful shove and leaned back slightly. Don't be so impatient, Caleb, she teased. We're going to be together for almost a month. Let's have a drink to celebrate first. Breathing in the girl's lingering perfume, Caleb thought to himself, what a manipulative little flirt. Since they were just getting started, everyone only took a single sip before setting their glasses down. Caleb plopped down onto the plush sofa, leaning back comfortably. He felt the gentle swaying of the yacht's cabin as he began chatting with the 4 beauties. After a bit of conversation, Caleb learned that the girl in the camisole and black miniskirt was a student at the Deep City Drama Academy. She was currently a junior, and her name was Monica. In the third year, classes were actually quite sparse. By the fourth year, there would be almost no classes at all. So, she was already quite anxious to find a job as soon as possible. It would have been a dream come true to break into show business. Unfortunately, after going to a few auditions, she realized that the industry has no shortage of beautiful women. Because of that, she could currently only find work as a model or a background extra. She hadn't found her big break yet. As for the other three women, one was named Anin Zhao, one was named Miao Qin, and another was named Shinran Li. They were all beauties with great figures and stunning looks. The four of them were extremely enthusiastic toward Caleb. They actively threw themselves at him, though they didn't know exactly how much money Caleb had. Just looking at this private yacht, not to mention the crew and overall expenses, they knew he was definitely a multi-billionaire. Young, handsome, and rich. Wasn't he exactly the sugar daddy they'd always dreamed of? The trip from Deep City to Miami would take over 10 days just for the journey itself. Fortunately, Caleb had plenty of time now. At first, Caleb was quite interested. He brought his drink out onto the deck, felt the sea breeze, looked out at the ocean, and felt the gentle rocking of the hull. But he soon found it boring. It couldn't be helped. The sea air carried a heavy, salty, fishy smell, and looking out at the vast, endless ocean, there was really nothing to see but water. While Caleb was lost in thought, Monica suddenly brought a bunch of things and ran over to him. She said with a beaming smile, "Caleb, Caleb, look what I brought for you." Caleb took a curious look. It was actually fishing gear. He smiled as he picked up the rod and said, "I've never been fishing before. This is a perfect time to try it out. Let's see what it's like." Caleb didn't actually know how to use any of it, but fortunately, Monica did. Under Monica's guidance, Caleb successfully cast his line. Watching the line, Caleb said with a bit of anticipation, "They say beginners always have beginner's luck. I want to see if Wait, hold on. I've got a bite." Caleb pulled hard. Sure enough, there was a fish on the hook. He couldn't recognize the species, but it didn't matter. This was just for fun. After setting the fish aside, Caleb cast his line again. Monica sat down right beside Caleb, leaning in very close. "Is fishing fun, Caleb?" Caleb said enthusiastically. "It's actually quite fun. Look, I've already caught 3 fish in 10 minutes. Caleb, am I pretty? You're quite pretty. Look." Caleb suddenly realized what she was asking. He turned to look at Monica. Caleb understood exactly what was going on. Objectively speaking, Monica was indeed good-looking. But she wasn't top tier. She was just your typical pretty girl. The kind of goddess an average guy would worship. But in elite circles, she was just another pretty face. For the old Caleb, with the little money he used to have, he wouldn't even have stood a chance. Monica wouldn't have given him a second glance. But with Caleb's current wealth, it was only natural that she wasn't enough for him. A casual fling was one thing, but even for a kept mistress, Caleb only wanted the absolute best. He said casually, "You look good." Caleb gave her a light pat, and said indifferently, "You're pretty, but you're still not quite up to my standards." Monica looked a bit dejected. She understood that a man of his immense wealth would only be interested in world-class beauties, but people are never willing to accept defeat. For the sake of her future, she was willing to take a gamble. Monica took Caleb's hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "Caleb, I'm still a virgin. Don't look down on me because I'm a yacht model. I've only ever taken strictly professional jobs. I'm clean." Caleb looked ahead calmly and said nonchalantly, "Everyone has a price. What you're hoping to get from me isn't necessarily something I'm willing to give. You might think you have what it takes, but in my eyes, even as a kept mistress, you're still falling a bit short if you're truly willing to go all out. I'll only give you a payout when you get off the boat. As for what happens after that, or what your future holds, I don't really care." Caleb spoke those heart-stabbing words indifferently. Even though he sounded like a total prick, it was just the reality of the situation. Monica wasn't some naive, innocent girl. She understood the logic perfectly well. It was just a shame that she couldn't secure a path to the high life. But a woman's first time is only valuable once. Monica had considered it. She didn't know what kind of man she'd end up marrying anyway. At least, this young billionaire wouldn't treat her poorly. Caleb looked over the other 3 women with a smile. "My standards are very high. though you're all very beautiful. We're strictly limited to hanging out on the yacht, or maybe a friends with benefits thing when I'm free. As for anything long-term, to be honest, my requirements are strict. The three of them were all discouraged. Given their looks and figures, they would be considered beauties at any university. But unfortunately, Caleb was rich now. His harem only accepted top-tier beauties. Shinran Li's eyes darted around. Like Caleb, she said. Speaking of top-tier beauties, I actually know one. Caleb reached out, pulled her into his arms and said, "Are you sure about that? A top-tier beauty?" Shinran Li said with certainty, "Of course, Caleb, since none of us catch your eye. Then I can pretty much guess the type of woman you like. I really do have a best friend, whose body and looks are absolutely world-class. And she's a flight attendant." "A flight attendant, huh?" Caleb mused. If she was a flight attendant, Caleb was only interested in a fling. The reputation of that industry really tended to give people certain ideas. It was notoriously messy. Sensing Caleb's thoughts, Shinran Li said quickly, "Caleb, don't worry, this friend doesn't have a man." Caleb raised an eyebrow slightly. "Are you sure?" Shinran Li nodded hard. "Absolutely. I know her well. See, my friend? She just really, really loves to shop. She's always wanted to find a high-quality boyfriend." So, Caleb got it instantly. A gold digger looking for a high price tag. That was fine with him. Or Caleb, a problem that could be solved with money. Wasn't really a problem at all. With over 800 billion in his hands, could he not handle one gold digger? He said nonchalantly, "Money isn't an issue. Even houses and cars aren't a problem." Shinran Li said immediately, "Caleb, wait a second. Let me get my phone and show you some photos." Shinran Li didn't care at all that she was only wearing a bikini. She rushed over to grab her phone and scrolled through it quickly. Seconds later, Shinran Li opened an Instagram profile, showed it to Caleb, and said, "Look, Caleb. Look at her profile, Caleb." He ended up scrolling through her feed for a bit. It was mostly photos of her at various travel destinations, having afternoon tea, at influencer hotspots, or showing off luxury goods. There were plenty of selfies, shots in everyday clothes, and photos in her work uniform. He had to admit, judging by the photos, she was exceptionally beautiful. Forget being a campus belle, even in the professional modeling world. She could hold her own against anyone. Shinran continued her pitch from the side. "This bestie of mine is 5'8", with a 34C bust. She hits the gym constantly, so her body is in incredible shape." Caleb handed the phone back and said, "She looks good. I'll meet her when I have time." Shinran pumped her fist. Yes, even though the young master hadn't picked her, he was interested in her best friend. When her bestie hit the big time, it wouldn't be too much to ask for a little help in return, right? For the sake of her own future. Shinran immediately started messaging her friend. Beside her, Anan and Miao looked on with pure envy. Shinran was a model, so she knew plenty of beauties in the industry. Meanwhile, one of them was an office professional, single and unmarried, and the other was a college senior. They didn't have many resources in that department, but it didn't matter. At least they still had a foot in the door, didn't they? Even if the young master didn't want anything long-term, cashing in on some short-term perks would still be a massive win. The two girls were racking their brains for connections, while Shinran was already frantically firing off messages to her bestie. A moment later, Shinran turned back to Caleb. Seeking credit, she said, "Caleb, it's all set with my friend. She's going to swap her shifts and head to Miami in a few days. She's taking time off to come party with us." Caleb's eyes lit up. "Good job," he said. He picked up his phone and added, "Hey, here's a little reward for you. Show me your QR code." Shinran excitedly opened her payment code. Beep. A notification followed. Payment received, 100,000. What kind of titan was this? Just for setting up a meeting, he gave a $100,000 finder's fee. A fiery passion ignited in Shinran's eyes. She tossed her phone aside without hesitation, threw her arms around Caleb, and said, "I love you, Caleb." Then, she planted a long, passionate kiss on him. "Thank you, system." Caleb thought silently to himself. After about 2 weeks at sea, the yacht finally arrived in Miami. Before they left, Leo from the yacht company had already made all the arrangements for Caleb. In the local Bay Area, he had secured a premier VIP berthing spot. Caleb and the girls docked the yacht and began to disembark. The crew, of course, had to remain on standby, so they couldn't go too far. However, they didn't have to stay on the boat the whole time. They were free to go grab food and drinks nearby. As for Caleb and the 4 girls, they were definitely heading out. After drifting on the yacht for so many days, they all felt a little shaky. As they adjusted to being back on solid ground, Caleb glanced at the coastal view and felt in high spirits. Since they were here, they were going to have fun. Caleb asked casually, "Do you guys know of any fun spots around here? Give me some recommendations." The 4 of them blurted out various names: Star Island, the luxury boutiques, photo shoots on the beach, the Atlantis Resort, and so on. As for things like Ocean Drive, they were actually quite boring. Caleb patted Shinran's backside and said, "All right, let's get a car first. Then I'll buy you all some things. Let's go check out the luxury mall." Just before they reached Miami, Caleb had already booked a car service. After all, he was in a different city. There was no point in the hassle of buying a car here. It was easier to just rent one. Caleb had chosen a Maybach and hired a professional driver. He wasn't familiar with the area, so a local driver was much more suitable. And with enough money, the rental company sent over their best veteran driver, specifically to serve Caleb. The driver was already there waiting. He was a man in his 40s, looking very formal in his suit. He had a serious expression and a composed demeanor. Caleb led the 4 girls into the car and said, "Driver, take us to the luxury boutiques." The driver replied politely, "Of course, Mr. Gray. We have several high-end shopping districts here in Miami. Which one would you like to visit?" Caleb didn't have a clue. He had never been there before, but he kept his cool and said, "What do you girls think? Where do you want to go?" Unexpectedly, all 4 said in unison, "Bal Harbor." The driver started the engine upon hearing that. Caleb didn't know much about it, but this mall was actually the premier high-end shopping destination in the area. It had every brand imaginable. The drive from the marina took nearly an hour. On the way, the girls chattered away, discussing what they were going to buy and what they liked. Caleb found it amusing. "Why think so much about it?" he said. "Just buy whatever you want. But this is probably the only trip we're making here. It's a hassle to drive back. Try to find everything you want and buy it all today. I don't want to deal with this for the rest of the trip." "Got it. Thanks, Caleb." "Thank you, Daddy." "Love you, Daddy." The 4 of them were overjoyed. The driver was a true professional. He had clearly seen scenes like this 1,000 times. He didn't show even a hint of emotion, acting as if he hadn't heard a word. An hour passed quickly. The group arrived at the luxury mall. Truth be told, most men have zero interest in the act of shopping, especially when it comes to accompanying women. It's even less appealing. In that regard, women can shop all day and still be full of energy, while men start looking for a sofa or a lounge. After barely 30 minutes, as soon as they entered, Caleb went straight to a lounge area. He told the 4 girls, "All right, it's 3,000 p.m. now. You have until 7:30 p.m. Buy whatever catches your eye, and I'll pay. I'm staying here to rest. We're done at 7:30, and then we'll go out for dinner." With a 4-hour window, the girls were beyond excited. They immediately began their shopping spree. Caleb, meanwhile, sat there playing on his phone. When it came time to pay, he would just go to the respective store and settle the bill. After 4 hours of intense shopping, the girls had bought a massive amount of stuff. Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Gucci, Dior, Hermes, Balenciaga, and more. All kinds of clothes and bags, perfumes, and lipsticks. The total spend was over $3 million. Caleb didn't even blink. The cosmetics added up to a full $1.5 million. To Caleb, a mere $1.5 million was absolutely nothing. Just the $50 billion he currently had in the bank generated a staggering amount of interest. Based on the 10% interest rate the bank gave him, he had over $13 million in daily interest that he couldn't spend fast enough. He literally couldn't spend it all. Not to mention the other $700 billion Caleb had in his offshore accounts. To put it bluntly, even if he lost $10 million gambling every single day, it still wouldn't match what he earned in a day's worth of interest. He would still be making a profit every day. As for that $50 billion, would there be some bank employee pulling a personal conduct stunt and claiming it had nothing to do with the bank? Caleb knew that was impossible. Anyone with a brain knows exactly what a sum like $50 billion represents. With the power and influence of a man like him, as long as you were still on this planet, he could hunt you down. He could make you wish you were dead. Therefore, no idiot would even dream of trying to embezzle that $50 billion. When the amount is that large, it inspires pure terror. Would you have the life to steal it, let alone the life to spend it. Spending over $1 million was something those 4 girls had never even dreamed of. But Caleb had made it a reality for all of them. Next, he arranged for some people to deliver all the shopping bags back to the yacht. Caleb didn't plan on staying in a hotel here. The yacht was perfectly fine. For dinner, he picked out an upscale local restaurant. The group ate together in a private room. Sinran sat next to Caleb, looking at her phone as she said, "Caleb, my bestie is here. She just messaged me. She's downstairs." Caleb nodded and said, "Good work." At this point, the other 4 girls had given up on any other ideas. The big boss already had his eye on someone else. There was no point in forcing themselves on him. Although they were a bit exhausted from accompanying him lately, these gifts were more than worth it. It was a fair trade. Not 5 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Shinran immediately got up to open it, and let a beautiful woman inside. Caleb looked up and couldn't help but have his eyes light up. She was truly a beauty. She was about 5'7", and she was wearing a pair of 2-inch black patent leather heels. Her features were incredibly delicate. She had a perfect heart-shaped face, elegant, dark eyebrows, a high, straight bridge on her nose, and a small, dainty mouth. Her luscious lips were vivid, coated in a layer of bright red lipstick. She looked absolutely ravishing. Just one look was enough to make a man want to kiss her. She wore an off-the-shoulder dress that showed off her deep, elegant collarbones and her snow-white, slender arms. A thin white belt was cinched around her waist, which, against the black dress, created a striking color contrast. It perfectly accentuated her tiny waist, giving her an incredibly graceful silhouette. The hemline fell about 4 inches above her knees, not too long, not too short. It revealed her well-proportitudes. Her legs were bare, smooth and fair without a hint of excess fat. They were straight and slender. On her feet, she wore heels, silver-pointed toes with a subtle shimmer. She was indeed stunning, especially her face. It had a certain seductive quality to it. It felt like whenever she looked at you, she made you feel like she was trying to entice you. She looked like the kind of woman a man wanted instantly, yet someone who seemed approachable. She had the face of a natural-born homewrecker. Shinran had already briefed her beforehand, so she looked at Caleb and said, "Hello, Caleb. My name is Lily Zhang. I'm Shinran's best friend." Her voice was very pleasant. It was mature and sultry, with a playful, teasing edge. Caleb reached out and said, "Hello. Please, make yourself at home and have a seat." To be perfectly honest, Caleb was very satisfied with Lily's looks and figure. He liked what he saw. And according to Sinran, Lily was still clean. That was a major plus. As for Lily loving money, he just laughed. Was Caleb ever short on cash? Shinran sat next to Caleb, while Lily sat next to Shinran. Seeing Caleb, Lily also let out a sigh of relief. She had heard from her bestie that this young master was incredibly wealthy. A single private yacht alone was worth billions. Plus, he had a permanent year-round crew and massive maintenance costs. These were no small expenses. On top of that, the cost of this trip to Miami was absolutely astronomical. He was rich, obscenely rich, super rich. Lily didn't deny that she was a gold digger. She was perfectly fine with being a kept woman. She was just afraid the man would be so ugly she couldn't stomach it. Looking at Caleb, Lily felt much more at ease. He was handsome, genuinely handsome, young, handsome, and rich. Even if she was just mistress number 4 or number 5, she wouldn't mind. As a flight attendant who had been in the industry for 2 years, she knew exactly how things worked. Almost every flight attendant was looking to land a wealthy man. Lily was no exception. She was just waiting for the right bidder, hoping to sell herself for the best price possible. As for Caleb's situation with the other 4 girls, she knew, but she didn't care. If you're going to be a young master's mistress, why worry about that? She wasn't trying to become the official wife. As long as she was obedient and took good care of the young master, she could trade it for a life of luxury. If she could save up enough for the rest of her life, that was all that mattered. If she got lucky and bore the young master a child, she'd be set for good, never having to worry about money again. Since there were so many of them there, the 2 of them didn't discuss anything private. They just ate and chatted. By the time dinner ended, it was nearly 10 p.m. It was time to head back. But Lily was staying at a hotel. Caleb and the others were staying on the yacht. Looking at Caleb, Lily weighed her options. If she didn't seize this opportunity now, she didn't know when she'd ever run into such a mega tycoon again. She didn't even bother with her usual fish farming tricks. Lily knew they were on different levels. They weren't even in the same league. You can manipulate trust fund kids, but not a man like him. When you meet someone at this level, you have to be the one to chase them. That's the only way to have a chance. Even though Lily didn't have much real experience, she saw through everything with perfect clarity. She understood it all perfectly. She wasn't going to play hard to get. Even if she was just going to be arm candy, Lily knew how to be arm candy that provided real emotional value. It had to be said. Lily Jang was a smart woman, so Lily walked straight up to Caleb, her eyes full of affection as she said, "Caleb, I've never actually been on a yacht before. Could you take me up there to see it?" Seeing the sheer longing in her gaze, Caleb understood perfectly. He said immediately, "No problem. Just check out of your hotel room. Stay on the yacht instead. You'll be able to see everything much better that way." Lily nodded and said, "All right, Caleb, but I need to go back to my room and pack my things." With a wave of his hand, Caleb had the driver take them to the hotel. Once they arrived at the hotel, Shinran Li went up to help Lily pack her bags, while Caleb and the others waited in the car. Lily packed her things very quickly. Perhaps she didn't have much to begin with. It only took half an hour before the two of them came back down together. Then, the whole group headed back to the yacht. When they stepped on board, Lily was truly stunned. It wasn't that she had never seen a yacht before, but she had never seen one this massive. Most yachts people owned were small or mid-sized. Even private clubs rarely had large ones. They were usually small models for basic outings, or just to experience the water. But Caleb's yacht was absolutely enormous, with every feature designed for high-end luxury. He really was a wealthy young master. A spark of life appeared in Lily's beautiful eyes. She had waited so many years and rejected so many old men. Her luck had finally turned. It was time for her to finally turn her life around. The other four girls were very sensible. They finished their chores early and retreated to their respective rooms. That left only Caleb and Lily. Caleb sat on the deck, feeling the sea breeze, while Lily went to take a shower first. Before long, Lily emerged wrapped in a bathrobe and came to Caleb's side. Looking at the lights of the massive yacht, Lily sighed. "This kind of life is something I never even dared to dream of." Caleb caught the scent of her shampoo and body wash and asked, "And from now on?" Lily turned her head and looked at him with seductive, alluring eyes. "That depends on whether you're willing to take me along to see the rest of this scenery." Caleb gave a short laugh, extended his arm, and pulled Lily into his embrace. "I think you're a smart woman," he said. "You know exactly what your position is." Lily leaned into Caleb's chest as he spoke. "I've always believed that having a clear sense of self-awareness is the most important thing. A person has to know their place." Caleb said with satisfaction, "I can give you everything you want, but you'll never be the main one." Lily shook her head and said, "That doesn't matter. The status is different. I would never dream of reaching for that position. That's what I mean by being self-aware." Caleb grew more and more pleased with Lily's attitude. "My requirements are also very simple," Lily said seriously. "Caleb, please, go on." His requirements were tied to her future luxury life. She had to listen carefully. It wasn't that there were no other rich men, but finding one who was young, handsome, and this wealthy was no easy feat. Caleb said calmly, "You can't start conflicts with the others. Even if you meet them, no drama allowed. You cannot have any inappropriate contact with other men. Normal friends are fine. I won't restrict your social circle. Also, you must be on call, unless you're mid-flight or already out of town." Lily understood perfectly. Besides her, Caleb had other women. She couldn't cause any friction. As an exquisite and beautiful mistress, Lily naturally wouldn't cause trouble for her sugar daddy. As for flirting with other men, Lily was even planning to cut ties with all her ordinary male friends, just to avoid making her daddy angry, to say nothing of anything more. She could kill her entire roster right now. Being on call was a given. Lily was already considering whether to change her job, in case a flight schedule made her unavailable. She immediately spoke up to show her stance. "Don't worry, Caleb. I won't start anything with the other girls. If I meet the main one, I'll be very respectful. As for other men, I won't have any contact with them at all." Caleb nodded and added one more point. "Also, buy plenty of lingerie and toys." "I like that." Lily understood instantly. "I'll pick them out myself. I'll buy all sorts of outfits and shoes. Then, Lily snuggled closer into Caleb's chest. So, what kind of rewards and benefits do I get? Seeing the beauty in his arms as submissive as a kitten, Caleb stroked her shoulder. I remember you're based in Deep City, right? Lily nodded and said, I'm currently working out of Deep City. My flights all originate from there. But my home isn't in Deep City. I'm from Jackson. Caleb thought for a moment and said, a penthouse in Deep City, a 3,200 square foot luxury flat, and a Porsche. By the way, what's your monthly salary and spending like? Hearing this, Lily thought about it and said, my salary isn't that high. It's about $12,000 a month, including all the various stipends. As for my spending, I pretty much spend everything I make. I've been using my credit cards constantly. It's all pocket change, really. Caleb said directly, from now on, you'll have $200,000 a month for your own personal use. I don't care how you spend it. When we're out together, eating or shopping, I'll be paying for everything anyway. As for the house and the car, if you can stay with me for 1 year, the car is yours. If you make it to 3 years, the house will also be yours. I'll have the deed transferred to you then. Every industry has its market rates. While Caleb was certainly wealthy, he wasn't going to break the market. He could have offered $1 million a month. But wouldn't that just be pure market sabotage? How would others be able to play the game? The entire market would fall into chaos. So while $200,000 a month was a bit high, it wasn't non-existent in high-end circles. Reference, some maids in certain cities make $140,000 a month. As for the house and the car, giving them away after a set time was no big deal. After all, plenty of bosses in the South have similar arrangements. They really do. There was a boss in Minnesota who kept a girl for 2 years for over $2 million, and gave her a Ferrari as well. Lily was beyond excited as she listened. $200,000 a month, with travel expenses handled separately. It was more than enough. She could buy all the luxury goods she ever wanted. Plus, she would have a house and a car. As long as she stayed with him long enough, they would be hers. What an incredibly generous sugar daddy. He was a literal dream come true. Lily blurted out immediately, "Thank you. Love you," she added, leaning in for a kiss. Since Caleb had bought gifts for the 4 girls today, and since Lily was his official mistress, he couldn't leave her without a proper gesture. The following day at noon, Caleb took the whole group back to the luxury boutiques for another shopping spree. Lily was a woman, and a gold-digging one at that, but she was also very clear-headed. She cast an uncertain glance at Caleb, and asked, "How much am I allowed to buy?" Caleb said nonchalantly, "Pick whatever you want." Lily was momentarily stunned. She swallowed hard and asked, "Are you serious?" Caleb laughed. "How much could you possibly buy?" "It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I could buy this entire store if I wanted to. Just pick whatever you like." Lily sucked in a breath of cold air. She had definitely found the right sugar daddy. Young, handsome, a total alpha male, and obscenely wealthy. He was perfect. Lily leaned in and whispered in Caleb's ear, "Tonight, you just sit back and enjoy. I'll show you what fully automatic really means." After saying that, she kissed Caleb, turned around, and headed into a nearby boutique. Caleb's heart was immediately filled with anticipation. In the end, Lily bought a pile of luxury goods, totaling over $1 million. Caleb had the staff arrange for delivery to the yacht. Then the group began their sightseeing. How could they come all this way just to shop? Naturally, they had to do some actual touring as well. Even though the internet said the local tourism was a scam, it made no difference to Caleb. It was just about buying some fun. His daily interest alone was enough to create a new multi-millionaire every single day. Why would he care about a few local traps? After drifting at sea for so long, the group was already tired of playing in the water. Instead, they wanted to check out the downtown area. And so, the group began to wander the streets of Miami. They went to a local theater to watch a live performance. To be honest, Caleb thought the whole thing was total nonsense, but he stayed to watch it with the girls anyway. By the time it ended, it was already past 7:30 p.m. Caleb stretched his limbs and asked, "Anyone want to go anywhere else?" They all shook their heads. "Let's just eat." The food in Miami wasn't exactly top tier, and most of the time, it had a heavy scent of the sea tide. Caleb always found the taste a bit odd. Lily had only taken 3 days of leave, because she hadn't been sure at the start how things would go with Caleb. She hadn't dared to take too much time off. Now, both sides were extremely satisfied, but the 3-day vacation flew by in an instant. Lily packed her bags and took Caleb's car to the airport. Looking out the window, Lily sighed and said, "Once I'm back at work, I'm afraid I won't get to see you very often. This 2 days on, 1 day off schedule is so brutal." Caleb said with a grin, "What's there to be afraid of? I'm planning to head back in a couple of days myself. I'll message you when I'm home. Call me during your next break, and I'll take you to see the house and the car." Lily gave Caleb a kiss and said excitedly, "Thank you." Caleb just smiled silently. Now that Lily was gone, there wasn't much point in Caleb staying around. He spent 2 more days with the 4 girls, then bought plane tickets for everyone to head back. They had come by yacht, but they certainly didn't want to endure that torture again on the way back. 10 more days? Being at sea for that long was just too boring. As for the yacht, he just let the crew drive it back on their own. It wasn't peak tourist season right now, so the plane wasn't crowded. Caleb and his group were the only ones in first class. Shinran and the other 3 girls knew that once they got back, they would likely never see him again. Maybe one day the young master would want to change his pace and might call them up for a night, but the chances were slim. Shinran was probably a bit better off, since she had a best friend in the mix. That gave her a slight advantage. As for Monica and the other 2, they were likely out of the picture. After landing, Caleb didn't even drop them off. He'd already sent them plenty of money over the last few days. The 4 girls each gave Caleb a kiss goodbye before taking separate cabs home. The onlookers were green with envy. What kind of lucky bastard is this? Is it just because he's handsome? How could 4 beauties all give him a kiss goodbye? Where is the justice in this world? Today was the weekend. Tiffany was at home resting. Caleb had told her before he boarded the plane, so Tiffany had prepared a full meal. After 2 hours of reconnecting, Tiffany finally collapsed on the sofa and fell asleep. Caleb, feeling refreshed, went to take a shower, and then sat down to eat. That night, lying in bed, Caleb didn't bother Tiffany any further. The 2 of them just watched TV and chatted. "Caleb, you were out for almost 20 days. How was it? Was the yacht fun?" Tiffany was still very curious about the yacht. She knew Caleb owned one. She was at the bank when he signed the contract and swiped his card, but she had never seen it herself. Caleb thought about it and said, "It was okay. It was fun when we first got on board, but after a while, it got boring. It's the same routine over and over." Tiffany leaned against Caleb's chest and asked softly, "I remember you telling me you went alone." Caleb laughed. "I wasn't counting the incidental encounters." Tiffany pouted. "You bad boy," she said, then added, "So, did you meet any new sisters?" Caleb didn't try to hide it at all. He nodded directly and said, "Yes." Tiffany felt a wave of disappointment, but she understood her place. At most, she was just a mistress. This wasn't something she had any right to control, but she still said, "Caleb, regardless of anything, you still need to be safe." Sensible Tiffany didn't say anything more. She just huddled silently against him. This incident served as a reminder for Tiffany. Caleb would have many women. She was in a very insecure position. To say she loved Caleb, she probably didn't love him that much yet. At the start, it was just because he was handsome and rich. She wanted to attach herself to a tycoon like him for resources. Of course, time breeds affection. The current Tiffany really did have feelings for Caleb now, even if she couldn't be the official wife.